Chicho.
Sorry.
I've muted everyone. But I want to one of them work on muting. I'll be forced to remove them. But I've muted everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, once again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The next session again, by Sister Bibi Rahma. Her real name is Rahma Abdul Latif. Sister Rahma is a qualified and registered counselor and a family psychotherapist. She works in children and mental health services within hospital and a community setting. She worked as a secondary school therapist for over 10 years. She is working as a clinical consultant in children's service and running a private clinic. She's also trained to work with adults, children, families, and couples. Sister Bibi Rahma Abeda in the UK. She also has a private clinic. If anybody needs any kind of help with Sister Bibi Rahma, we'll give you the contact and let you know where the private clinic is. Inshallah, when the lockdown is. So Bibi Rahma, you have the floor.
We are going to ask Bibi Rahma to do something. Oluzungu lumbuze bannaye munyambe kao. Computer ajikole mu bwati. Munafuukira ekizibu. Okay, a little more Hajat.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, achikole mugambe mu luzungu.
Kolechi.
Computer
the focus so that we see her image better.
Oluzungu luganye bannange
Manyo Luganda.
Can you tilt your camera? You can only see.
Please, and come closer to the
camera. Tilt your camera. Just tilt it.
Our school fees it is Gane Ramuna Sojo. Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Kasha. Sister Rahma, can you unmute yourself?
Sister Hasfa, Thraya Bayawani Somkono, Simanchi Bagamba.
Okay.
About the Neshe.
Sister Rahma, can you hold on a minute, please? Yes, Thraya. Thraya, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Naam, mbadde nsaba Sheikh aberenga as such naye ensonga zibadde bbiri.
Yes.
Tufunyemu breakdown ey'amasanyalaze ate nga twali tetukyeteekedde.
Okay.
Naye mpanisa omukono basically Sheikh kubeera nti no abasiibula era ategeezezza nti on Monday inshallah ajja kuba confirminga whether on Thursday anaasobola okudda to wind up the topic and to handle the questions inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Okay.
When our next session will be there, so but we are communicating privately.
Inshallah, barakallahu fikum. Subhanallah bamalire tuwo bulungi fenna fi dunya wal akhirah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mwebale kuyimirira amasanyazo we gatagenda.
Tukusiimye ugenze tukyakwetaaga naye tusaba Allah akusasule bulungi ne cameraman waffe Sheikh Mawejje Sabo tukwebazizza nnyo utukwatira omukono gwa leero to communicate to you when the next class will be there.
Inshallah.
The studio looks like that outside.
Mashallah. That is where you put your money. Banange Umma connected and everyone who put in some. Tetufunye mukisa na inshallah next session tujja kubaraga what is happening down there with your money. Thuraya studio is going on and happening down there. Tuwebaza nnyo bannange. All right, we can continue now.
Yes, Sister Rahma, you have the floor.
Okimanyi tali co-host.
She was a co-host.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Kakati njagala mumpe permission ya co-host.
You have.
Okay, great. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين جزاكم الله خيرا for having me. I'm going to push myself. Nizungumze Kiganda. I'm going to try. But Hafsa couldn't say some words in Kiganda, so that got me worried.
No. She's someone get outside. Naye.
Okay. Wanasema nini? What is worry? What is worry in Kiganda?
Kweralikirira.
Nderalikiridde nnyo nti Sister Hafsa tasobola kwogera Kiganda.
Nedda ndwogera bulungi nnyo.
Naye kikulemye.
Ekyo kibadde kiganye kituufu.
Tolabaawo.
Tofaayo Sheikh Zaidi waali, mukadde waffe Abu Hayyan waali, nanga akongojja I'm here.
Okay, inshallah.
Hata kikosa Kiswahili najaribu kidogo.
Divorce, I think muchipanze bulungi alhamdulillah nti Sheikh atubuliddeko divorce. I think the most important thing for me to pick from what the Sheikh said, what the Sheikh did, is what you've done is we're demonstrating that divorce is allowed in Islam. We don't stay married for the sake of the children. We stay married for the sake of the marriage. The children come as an after the marriage kind of conversation. So what happens with divorce? So in my work as a therapist, one of the things that I know that really happens a lot is the idea of when divorce happens, there is a lot of bitterness. But abantu banyiga nnyo. Kati mu kunyiga bwe tuba tunyize nnyo, omuggo gwe tufuula nini abaana, nkyogedde busasa. Omuggo abaana tubafuula muggo, abaana be tufuula omuggo. Oba oyina frustration ku marriage, omusajja wo oba mukyala wo akunyiziza for whatever reason, kati abaana be tuteeka wakati. Okay? So tukozesa abaana kupanishinga omulala. Oba mama akozesa abaana kupanishinga taata, oba taata akozesa abaana kupanishinga mama. Naye that process of putting the children in the middle hurts the children. So that's my angle. What hurts the children is us, the parents, not the divorce. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to divorce. It can't be harmful. Divorce in itself cannot be harmful, but only beneficial, just like the Sheikh said. He said that when the relation is no longer functional, we should, amesema tosigala mu relationship okubonabona. Nti tosigala mu relationship kubonabona. You're not doomed to stay in the relationship.
Hey, Ashraf, is it me or her volume is very low?
Is my volume quite low?
On my side it's clear.
Okay. I can't go any further. I'm on maximum.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am actually on maximum on my side.
It's okay.
You okay?
All right.
Great. So when our marital relationships end, our parental relationship and responsibility remains. So we want to be able to separate the two things. The couple relationship ends, but the parental relationship remains. The parental relationship remains and the parental responsibility remains. But before we do that, I just wanted to think about our positions. What is our position? So I wanted us to reflect on this verse in the Quran. We say, Inna lillahi Wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Surely we belong to Allah, and to him we shall return. What does it mean? So normally I think we normally use this verse if we've lost something, if we've lost someone, but it puts a perspective. It's to give us a perspective, okay? So you might ask, what does this have to do with the topic? It has a lot to do with the topic. What does it say? It says that we belong to Allah, and to him we shall return. So we are on a journey. Just because there is a divorce, how we treat one another, and especially the children, is very important, because we all belong. This verse puts things into perspective about who we are and what our purpose is. We belong to Allah, that's us, the husband, the wife, and the kids. So we are not owners, so we don't own the children, but we and our children are owned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the point I want us to start from. If we don't own the children, Allah has put these children under our care, and he has given us the responsibility to take care of the children. So how do we go on? So the question is, when the divorce has happened, what is the psychological effect of the divorce on the children? That's my first question. What is the impact? What is the psychological effect? So research tells us, or what we learn is that it depends. While divorce is very stressful for all children, some children rebound faster than others. So some children get over it faster than others. Why? Keep the question, because we'll answer it down the line. But what goes on for the children emotionally and mentally when the divorce is happening, dad is leaving, or mom is leaving, whichever one of the parent is leaving? Children have a range of emotional responses to their parents' divorce. So children sometimes fear of being rejected by one parent. They fear of not being loved. Sometimes they blame themselves for the divorce because they think maybe it is because of their misbehavior that the parents are divorcing. Maybe, I don't know, in some of the cases I work with, children have seen a message from a woman and they've told their mom, and then things start from there. So sometimes children blame themselves about this. Sometimes they feel, but it's not always negative. Sometimes the impact on the children is relief. They're so relieved, at last it's ended, because whatever was going on between their parents is impacting on them. So sometimes it's a relief because it lowers the intense conflict that takes place. All in all, the separation is very stressful. It is stressful for the mom, stressful for the dad, stressful for the children. And then the children are afraid because they are going to lose contact or connection with one of the parents. But we know in a study in 2013 that mothers often feel less supportive and less affectionate after the divorce. And their discipline, so the way they are raising the children and the way they are disciplining the children, sometimes becomes less consistent and sometimes it's less effective. So many children feel that they must hide. This is another thing that happens to children, that they must hide their feelings, how they feel about the divorce. They shouldn't talk about it. They shouldn't show it. Some children feel that way. Many children worry about what is going to happen now that their parents are divorced. And the accompanying stressors are what make the divorce most difficult. So I guess by here we now know, see divorce, it's not the divorce itself, but it is what the worries are, what the issues are. The children are fearful, the children are feeling stressed. So it's an emotional and a mental health issue for the children. But what we know in research, so there is so many years of research that has been done about divorce and what happens to the children. So historically, all those researches that they did showed that maybe it's the divorce, it's the impact of separation, but now there is something called meta-research. So they're looking at the research that was already done, and what now we're learning, actually the impact on the children, it's not the divorce, it's rather the most, it is telling us that it is actually children's psychological reactions to their parents' divorce. There's three things that we learn. The quality of the relationships with the parents before the divorce happened. So the quality of their parents' relationship with each other before the divorce, the parents' ability to focus on the needs of the children after the divorce, and the intensity and the duration of the parental conflict. So that's why we are saying it's not the divorce. Research is telling us that what really affects children's psychological reactions to their parents' divorce could be the quality of their relationship with each other before the separation or the divorce, the parents' ability to focus on the needs of the children after the divorce, and the intensity and the duration of the parental conflict. So divorce in itself is not a problem, but it's what we do as parents, as adults, okay? So one of the things we do is that children are feel in the middle. Parents put the children in the middle. They feel like they're put in the middle. This parent is pulling this way, this parent is pulling this way. 1 in 4 families in the UK experiences conflict between parents, and whether they're separated or whether they're together. So there's a lot of parental conflict, whether parents are divorced or parents are together. So parents to think that the children don't know that something is going on, they're in conflict, there is arguments happening. And sometimes because of that, parents just continue doing what they're doing because they think kids are small, they don't understand. But it does impact them. They have all the fears, they have all the worries, and they don't know what is going to happen to them. So all those things really worry the children. So what then do we need to think about is the way parents communicate with one another has an impact on the developing children. Sharing parental duties with your ex is often the hardest part of the divorce. But what we need to think about is putting the children in the center. This is not about you, this is not about him, this is about the children. So what do you need to do? Do not take your mental health or your children's mental health for granted. Mental health is real, and children suffer from it, and parents suffer from it. So one of the ways of looking after their mental health and your mental health is to really think about how to separate, like the Sheikh said, and be civil. We need to be civil. We need to put the children at the center. We need to remember the children's needs and their mental health well-being. So children who succeed after the divorce, I'm still sharing some ideas from the research. Children who succeed after the divorce have parents who can communicate effectively and work together. So when you are divorced as parents, what needs to happen is you working together and working effectively in your communication to help your children. That's a way of supporting your children. Another way of supporting your children is help your children to feel that you and their father loves them very much, and that you will both always love them. That your breaking up is not their fault. This is between the adults, things didn't work out and the relationship had to end, especially what the Sheikh said. she said, don't remain in the relationship where things are really not working out. It's no longer functional. So, and the children need to understand that it's the adult relationship that wasn't working. Help the children to feel that you and their father will remain in their lives. Things will be different with everyone not living together, but mom and dad will always be there for you. Okay? And that the children, sometimes children feel that they're also getting divorced from the parents. So what the children need to know is that they're not getting divorced from their parents. Let your children know that let your children love the other partner. So if the children are remaining with dad, let them love their mom. If they're remaining with mom, let them love their father. Let them love their extended family. Don't put pressure on your children to choose sides. Allow and encourage them to love and be loved so they'll be happy. Do not use the children as messengers. This is something else that happens a lot we see in our work. So you've now separated. The children are going to see their dad or their mom at the weekend, and you use them as the messenger. Hey, tell your dad XYZ, or tell your mom ABC. This is a horrible experience for children. They have to experience your emotions towards your ex, and then they have to filter those emotions when they deliver the message. Did you get that? When you give a message to your child, you have an attitude and an emotion tied to that message that you're sending your child to their dad. But it is a horrible experience for them because they have to experience your emotions. They then have to experience your emotions towards your ex because you're giving them a message to carry. They then have to filter these emotions to deliver the message. It's a horrible, horrible experience to put children through. Do not put your children in the middle. And certainly do not tell your children secrets that you do not want them to disclose to the other parent. It is so stressful to keep secrets. It really is very, very, very stressful for children to keep secrets. So you're telling them something, but they shouldn't say it to mommy or daddy. That's very difficult. Don't put them through that experience. Avoid asking the children, okay, so tell me, when you spent the day with your dad or with your mom, what did they say about me? Do not prompt your children to tell you what the other parent is saying. Don't ask them. That's very difficult for them. Okay? Avoid comparing your child to your ex. An example. So you say something to your child that they look like, oh, you do that thing like your dad, or you do that thing, you look like your mom when you do that thing. But your child knows that what you're saying you dislike, that quality that you dislike in their mom or their dad, don't compare that to your child. Because what happens to such comparisons, that they can be quite harmful and painful to the children because they're aware of your negative feelings towards that other parent. So what am I really saying? What I'm saying is it's not the divorce that hurts the children. It is what you do as parents that really harms the children and creates a lot of problem for the children. So what we need to do as parents is find a way where we can put our differences aside. The Sheikh has given us a beautiful talk on what is allowed, the rules of how to do it. Now that you've done it, we need to bury the bitterness, because between us, there's the children. Now, Allah owns you and Allah owns your children, and you have that responsibility to fulfill the upbringing and raising your children. So then, what do you need to do? Is you need to put your children first. You need to think about the children, and you need to cooperate for the sake of the children. The marriage is over, but you're still the mom and he's still the dad. Let's not use the children. I have so many cases, so many families that I work with, where the children are not allowed to see one parent, or the children are not allowed to mix with the other family. It becomes very difficult for the children. They didn't divorce from their dad. It's not their fault that you guys have decided to divorce. So what you need to do is be the mom and be the dad. And then there comes another question of responsibility, fulfilling responsibilities. So if the children have remained with one parent, there's the financial impact that now the house is split into two. Maybe the dad has moved out and he has to rent somewhere where he's going to stay on his own. And then the mom has to remain where she's staying on her own. So then expenses pile up because now you have lots of bills to think about. But that does not take away the fact that the dad still has a responsibility towards the children and fulfilling that responsibility, which is a financial responsibility as well as the emotional and the physical responsibility. So making contact, showing them that you still love them, doing things with them, making sure that you meet them, you take them out, you bring them to your place, so that will allow the children to develop into effective grown-up human beings. I just did the do's and the don'ts very briefly, and I thought it would be better to leave it open and to hear what people want to make it a discussion, or people to pose questions in how to go forward with the idea. What do we do and how do we manage the challenges of the divorce? So I don't know whether people are having a conversation about it in the chat, or whether people wanted to join me in putting questions forward. What happens and what are the struggles in the community, and what kinds of things do we want to sort of answer? But most importantly is that it doesn't have an impact on children's mental health and emotional well-being, how the parents are. So if you as the parents can be grown up, and you know, most of the young girls that I worked with in school, one of the things they say to me, they say, I wish my parents could grow up. There's that thing of when children start looking at you and they're thinking, you're behaving like kids. Now, if adults are starting to be seen as if they're behaving like children, where does that leave the children? So let's be adults. Let's have an effective communication. And remember, we are teaching our children how to be the way we are. It's not what we say, it's what we do. So how are you as a separated mom from your husband? And how are you as a separated dad from your husband? Let's stop telling the children, oli musirunga tata wo, oli musirunga mama wo. Chirabe chitambula nga tata we. Chirabe. Don't do all that. Why? If that tata now has become chirabe, sim toto, it's not the kid. It's not the kid's fault. If you've fallen out of love of your husband, the father of your child, allow your child to still be in love with him, because your love for him is not his or her, or is not your child's love for him. Your child will never have another biological father. You can have another partner. Separate the two things, and for the benefit of your own mental health and your children's mental health. I'm going to leave it there and allow people to give me, I don't have a lot of experience in what is going on in the community, but I know what goes on in when there is a divorce and when there's children in the middle. And one of the biggest things is it's used as a card to control the other parent. But what we don't realize, in the process of using them as that card, we're destroying them. You know, another thing that I didn't touch on is those boys and girls who are growing up in a very hostile divorce that has happened, but they're being brought up by the two parents who are really hostile to one another. They will experience problems in their own relationships as adults. There's a lot of research telling us that. They will experience, and they might not be able to form and develop effective relationships, love relationships in their lives. So it will have a bigger impact. So your behavior now is not only affecting them now, but it has a long-term effect. So those are the kinds of things you want to think about. Give them the best chance in life. You didn't want to stay in the relationship as a way of protecting your children. So now that you've come out of the relationship, the way the Sheikh said, lwaki obeera mu bufumbo nga obonaabona tosigalayo kubonaabona naye lwaki kati oyagala abaana bo babonebone. I think I'm going to leave that as a question, and then let's see what I have coming in. Is that okay, Sister Hafsa?
Yes, mashallah. I have mixed reactions. Some people are saying, please continue to teach. We don't want you to stop. So do you want questions? Do you want interactions? What would you prefer?
Anything. I want somebody to put something out, and then I'll build on that, because I'm thinking sometimes when we are doing this type of conversations, it's helpful to hear what people have on their mind and address it, as opposed to coming and talking and then you leave people with a lot of views and ideas. Normally we don't have enough time at the end to answer a lot of questions. Yeah. So let's open it, because we really want to understand, we want to help people to understand the impact of our behavior as adults on the children. That's what we want to help people to understand. So divorce itself has no impact on the children, but it's what we do after that or before that is what impacts on the children.
Okay.
What do you think?
Sister Hafsa.
Is it Aisha or Hafsa?
Aisha.
No, Sister Hafsa.
No.
Yeah.
Sister Hafsa, I'm suggesting like maybe we get 2 questions from the hands and then some 2 questions from the chat room.
Let's start with the chat room, I think this time. The last time we had hands. Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to read some of the questions. Chat room.
Okay.
Walwa Raihan Abuziza, is it mandatory to remain in touch with an ex as long as one parent does not block a child's communication with the other parent?
Okay, so the question is it mandatory to remain in conversation or in a relationship or in communication with the other partner as long as you allow access for the child?
Yes.
It's not mandatory, but it is a must. How can you not if you are living with the children? So let's say, for example, your child becomes ill. You have to talk to the dad. So we are not talking about let's be in a lovey-dovey, kind of relationship, but it's a straightforward relationship of your partners in raising children. So how do I do it? How do we do it? So yeah, you communicate on a needs basis. So if there's a need, you talk. If there's no need, you don't have to. So no, I don't know if it is mandatory to sit down and chat and laugh, but there will be things you want to talk to them about your child. Maybe your child is not coping very well at school. Maybe they're not doing well at school and you're thinking of getting them some extra help with tuition. So you have to, as long as you are raising those children and they see him and they see you, I think you have to talk, but only on a need basis. But there's people who argue and fight and send nasty messages. That's the thing we're saying not to do. But if you choose not to talk, that's fine too. If the child is old enough, 15, 16, that's fine. I hope I've answered that. But I have something that I wanted to address in the chat from Fatuma. Fatuma says, Sister Rahma, thank you, but you sound more theoretical. Many sisters in the West throw out their husbands. They deny them access to the kids and complicate things. And you expect a man in that circumstance to foot your bills. It's not practical, sister. I agree. And it's not practical to foot my bills, but it's so practical and so responsibility-wise for you with your Lord, with Allah, that you fulfill your children's needs. Whether your wife threw you out, yes, she has thrown you out. What happens between the two adults has nothing to do between your responsibility and your duty towards your children. You cannot run away from it, and you will be answerable about it with Allah. You have to fulfill the responsibility towards the children. If their mom, okay, don't give her the money, buy the children uniform, buy them the winter coat, buy them the shoes. You have to order online food, send them food. You have to, You have no two ways around it. Do not back off. You know, don't dike in the in this excuse. Atoba wangoba. Nakugoba finish na abana babo. You have a responsibility. So let's not. It's not theoretical. It's fact. Remember the verse that I shared with you. We said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilahi raji'un. We belong to Allah and to Him we return. What does it mean? Allah owns us and Allah owns our children. But Allah has given us responsibilities. As a mother, I have a responsibility towards my children. As a father, you have a monetary responsibility towards your children. So just because I threw you out, it does not take the responsibility away from you, and you will be answerable with Allah to that. You'll be answerable to that with Allah. Now, if you live in the UK, for example, I worked in local authority for many years. If you live in the UK and if the husband leaves and now you go on benefits, we know that the study tells us here in the UK that there's a lot of children who live on benefits and living below poverty. That the mom cannot afford on the money she gets to fulfill every need for those children. Alafu, you want to tell me, you as a dad, because you threw me out, I'm not giving you anything. Ebu, tell me how you'll tell that to Allah. Tell me how you will stand in front of Allah and tell Him why you did not support your children because your wife threw you out. Yes, it sounds theoretical, but we have to take it beyond that. The Sheikh told us before when he started, he said, we have Islam and Islam teaches us how to be and how to be in life, whether we are married or not. So don't run away from your responsibility in the name of being thrown out. Fear Allah. And remember, you will stand in front of Him. And what has this child done wrong that they have to go to school without lunch because of their mom divorcing you? Tell me. Tell me. So thank you, Sister Fatima, for your question, because you see, it has helped me to expand.
Yes.
Sister Bibi Rahma, I have a question.
Now.
Sister Aisha, I'm sorry. I have a question. I think this was mentioned earlier by Hajat Bukenya. How do you communicate to children that you're separating?
Okay, great. That's a good
second question would be, if the other spouse has moved on to getting another partner to be remarried, what is the best way to communicate to the children that situation?
Okay, so the first question is, how do you tell the children we're divorcing? So it becomes a bit complex because first of all, the divorce has to happen based on the teaching that the Sheikh has just given us. There's two ways of divorce. So there's the divorce that the husband initiates, and there is, in English, it is divorce, but in Islam, it's not. A woman does not give the divorce. A woman gives the khula. But I think, inshallah, the Sheikh will come back and teach us on that. But the idea is, if it's the mom who wants to initiate it, or the dad wants to initiate it. Now, once the adults have agreed that they want to do this, it is depending on the age of the children.
Okay.
So if your children are old enough that you can have a conversation with them, you can have a conversation with them. But if your children are smaller and you think they will not be able to understand it, then you can't. How can you help a 3-year-old understand why mom and dad are not living together? But if they're 6, 7, 8, you can. So what can you tell them? That's the question. So you could say something like, you know, we love you very much. And we are both your parents. And we care very much about you. But you know, me and your dad, or me and your mom, we are not getting on very well. As you can see, we are getting into a lot of arguments. It's not good for us. Depends on how you're living your life. If you're living your life and Islam is really at the forefront of it, then you need to help them to understand that it's not good for you, it's not good for us, and it's not good for our religion for us to continue living together. So we are deciding to live apart, but you will remain our children. We love you. He will still be your mom and I'll still be your dad. So you just want to give them a conversation that is reassuring. You're just reassuring to the children. Do you remember one of my slides that I showed? It is showing you all the ideas that are going on for the child. What is going to happen to me? Oh my God, they're going to separate. The child is thinking about what is going to happen to them. So what you want to do is having a conversation that is reassuring to them. But you can only do that if you can only do this if you are already in a conversation and a relationship that is conversational with your children. Some families do not talk to their children. And there is something here we know that there is something we say that children are seen but not heard. So it depends on the culture in your house. Are your children talked to? If you talk to your children, you can talk to them. If you're a family that never talks to your children, how do you start telling them that mom and dad are going to divorce? When every time where they pass you, itawa chirabe, tuleri, vayoan, genderi. Kakati sao mekao, you will sit down and talk to them. So you have to be already a communicating family. When your children are older, 15, 16, and you live here, that's easy. You can talk to them very openly and very easily, but you only tell them that it is mom and dad relationship that is not working. But our relationship with you will remain intact and we're going to work on it. So I don't know if other people have any other ideas or if somebody has done it before, but I think, so for example, we also have to remember, even if we are not separating, this is another thing that I'm very passionate about. When you get into arguments, mom and dad, sometimes your children want to take sides. You have to remind them not to. And they don't mean bad. They just want to say, Baba, what happened? No, you say to them, this is between me and your mom. Stay out of it. It's very important to keep a clear line between marital relationship as couple and parental relationship. So in one of the ways that we look at families in family therapy is we have different components in a family. So we have a couple system. That is everything that happens in that system between mom and dad as lovers. And then we have a parental system. This is where what mom and dad do together as parents. Are you with me?
Yes.
So what we are helping the children to understand that this couple relationship is the one that is breaking. But the parental relationship and the raising of the children and the loving them and the looking after them remains. And that takes us back to what Fatima said. Why are you expecting the dad to pay the bills? No, he's not paying my bills. He's paying bills of his children because he still has the responsibility. He still needs to hug them. He still needs to kiss them. He still needs to love them, but he also still needs to support their education. And that's where we manage the mental health well-being.
My other question, Sister Rahma, I didn't answer. The question
remind me again.
That if the separated parents are going to remarry, how do you bring the children to the picture? How do you communicate to the children? Because sometimes some parents forfeit their responsibility because the other spouse has got married, especially like the men. They say, so they forfeit their responsibility to financially prepare, to financially be responsible for the children. And they neglect their responsibility simply because the other spouse, the ex-partner has become remarried. So the children are ending up getting caught in the middle. And then they take the new spouse, have moved on. Moving, especially the men are moving on now, and then then there's another battle there. And then the men they'll forfeit their financial responsibility. But then the woman at the same time, you know.
Again, it's the same thing, Hafsa. What we are saying here is we are using the children as the ball in the middle. So when the mother gets married and the dad says, don't get married, what the dad is doing is wanting to punish the mom. And the Sheikh has talked about it already. So why are we not allowing her to move on? What does it have to do with mom moving on? What has anything got to do with mom remarrying and you looking after your children? They still are your children. But you see, in Islam, and I hope the Sheikh will touch on it, but Islamically, that's where Islam is so beautiful, that it answers a lot of challenges and helps us to avoid a lot of problems. So the way I understand it in Islam, and we have a few hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, that when a woman remarries, there are so many instances where the children get sent back to their dad. And the idea for that was twofold, that the responsibility of the raising these children is not passed on to another man, so that they go back to their dad, so their dad looks after them. Or the father gets into an arrangement with the new husband that he will continue to support the children, but he wants the children to remain with the mother. So what happens in our lives is we turn away from Islam, and we are so culturally orientated. We're doing things according to our culture. Kama Sheikh, the way the Sheikh said, Mchala Anoba. That's not in Islam. So when a woman remarries, if we think about it from an Islamic perspective, the two men are supposed to get into some kind of arrangement, because the husband will be working with the new husband, because the new husband now has become the leader, the imam of the home, right? But they have to get into an agreement where he says, yeah, I will continue my support, and they have to be in communication. But because we are doing things very culturally, things end up being very challenging for all of us. But it's the woman should not get married because the husband will stop giving the money. But how do we tell the children this? So there are so many different ways. If you are Islamically orientated in your home, it's easy. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. If you are Islamically orientated in your family,
I think sister is frozen. Camera Sister Rahma Labikedi frozen. Please bear with us. Please bear with us. Sheikh Zaidi. Unmute yourself.
Yes, that's fine. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Noktolia kusalam.
Omusomo oguwulira otya Sister Rahma labika freezing zinavaako katulinda
waligubuuziza Zaituni kwali oba singa we yagusomesa. Omusomo mulungi nnyo, alhamdulillah. I have one question for her.
Tannabakomawo.
Omanyi
Oh, wait a minute.
I'm here. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Your network, Bibi Rahma, I think your network went to you have the Mombasa network or the Kampala network. You're not in London, are you? Are you in Bibi Rahma?
Abuze.
You're lost.
Abuze. Sister Rahma. Omusomo Zaidi.
Omusomo mulungi nnyo, divorce era sekasenjala ajja kujja agimalayo, naye Bibi Rahma ebintu byayogedde ebisinga obungi birungi nnyo lwakuba ne wano abantu abagamba nti ali theoretical tali practical. She is practical. Ayinza okuba tali practical ku lulwo nga gwe bwotyo si tosobola kikola ekyo kyayogedde, naye olwokuba ye field ye gy'alimu abantu bangi balaba babikola, kyavudde azze atusomesa ekyo ekikolebwa era kyalaba kyakola mu clinic ye era kyakola mu community ye.
Gonna have sister Ada freezes agenda kumawo. I know what we are going to be so just please bear with us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wait a minute, Sister Una, come here.
Yeah, okay. I'm back. Sorry, yes. I don't know what happened. I got disconnected.
Oh, okay. But zaidi agambye nti muno network ye Mombasa.
Bwana si Mombasa hapa.
Bibi Rahma, that network is either Mombasa network or Kampala network.
I think it is, yeah. Subhanallah. And you know, it's never happened before, but alhamdulillah, we're here.
Okay.
Bibi Rahma, I'm going to test your Luganda because you promised us to test
lakini unajua kuzungumza kwa Kiganda ngumu.
Now I'm going to test you in Luganda. I'm going to ask you my question in Luganda, see if you understand it. Omanyi abazadde bawukana mu Busiraamu, this is Islamic area. Oba yawukanye ne mukyalawo, Obusiraamu ate tebugenda kukkiriza kubeera nga relationship gye walina eri okukuba amasimu na buli kimu nga bw'oyagadde tebugikkiriza.
No.
Yeah. Si wuwo kati.
Exactly.
Kati ekyo naddala bw'aba afumbiddwa nga movinze on. Nga gwe tonna movinga on. Ofuna obuzibu nti omusajja ono ali mu maka kati. Oyinza omumukosa n'amasimu g'okuba nti njakwogera n'abaana.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it affects relationship yo n'abaana, especially bwe baba bato nga tebalina amasimu nti ojja bakubira boogero olina okuyita mama waabwe. So how golowooza tukikole tutya ekyo?
Okay. Kakati kye njogedde luli bwe mbadde nkyayogera. Njogedde nti bwe bubanga omukyalo ono amaze okumuvinga on afumbiddwa omusajja omulala. Omusajja omulala oyo kati ye imaamu mu nyumba. Kati taata w'abaana alina okukolagana ne imaamu. Si mama w'abaana.
Rahma, omanyi ego zaffe.
Kakati tetwagala ego, twogera Busiraamu. Ojjukira bwe twagambye.
Bibi Rahma, Obusiraamu bubeerawo naye omuntu especially nga omukyala yakukyawa. Omukyala yakukyawa. Okwagala kuno obujja busigalawo bungi. Tutakolagana.
Kakati techina, you have no way around it. Chembade nkuwa answer mbade mpa biri. Nkugambye, bobanga oli Islamically orientated. So if you have put your Islam above and over everything, and you are really in this life journeying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you are feeling the jealousy because you still loved the woman, the only reason you have to keep in contact here is for the children's sake. The wife didn't want you anymore. Now she has another husband. So your communication about the children needs to be with the imam of the home. That will cut off the fitna between his wife. If he doesn't give his wife permission to talk with you, she doesn't have that permission. But she's the mother of your children. So one of the things you might want to do is, the children are small, make sure that you fund a landline in that home if they don't have a landline. We have to be practical about it. So you can't ring their mom all the time to say you want to speak to the kids. Let them have a landline, because the landline can be picked up by anyone. The dad can pick it up, the husband, and say, children, here is your dad, talk to them. There's that. So find a landline if you talking to the man all the time is difficult. But if you're going to provide some help, financial help to the children, how are you going to get the money there? By speaking to your ex-wife, who you know that you still love, but she doesn't love you, and now she's married to another husband. So it is for the sake of protecting your iman, is that you speak to the husband. He's the imam of the house now. And speaking to the wife, it will be only as a matter of need, but nothing more. And it's preventing, if your heart is already weak and you're still in love with this woman, why do you want to be talking to her when she's already married? So there's some personal work to do on you. And it goes for the woman as well. There's women who still want their husband, but the husband has got married another wife to another wife, and she insists of phoning him in times where this husband has come home now, he's supposed to be relaxing with his wife, and that's the time she phones. Where would you come watoto wagonjwa? Wewe mbona ukupita hapa ulisema utakuja Sunday, mbona haukuja? Lakini that is the time she knows that this is the time he's supposed to be sitting with his wife. And so we have to put ourselves on the side if we're thinking about the idea of inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. And at the end of it, we're thinking about our children. It is the benefit. We have to really, really put the children forward. Put your ego behind you. The child is a responsibility that you're going to be asked about when you stand in front of your Lord. Nkuze musebo.
Bibi Rahma nzizemu lwakuba nti ekintu kino kiri practical nnyo ku bantu abakirimu.
Exactly.
Naye omuntu aba takibeerangamu agamba akyangu omukubira essimu okola bwoti.
Changu naye kakati brother Zaid. Apo we tudawa when we say la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, or when we say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, the minute we take that oath, we have to allow Islam to tell us how to do things. Otherwise, mentally, we can't hack it. I'll tell you one thing. I work, and I have worked here for many years. And I have Muslim families I work with and non-Muslim families. And I will tell you that if you don't have Islam, the simplest thing becomes so complicated. And you will see two families where a Muslim family can solve the problem, and this other family will struggle to find an answer to a very simple problem, because they have no qala Allah ta'ala, qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So yes, we have our egos, we have our passions, we have our desires, but the minute you take that oath, the way you are saying you are going to run your life changes.
Barakallah fiik. Should we give hands to Sister Hamida? Unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Barakallahu fiik, Sister Rahma. Kakati sister, ebintu byoyogeddeko.
Na.
Ekibuuzo kyange kiri nti. Watya nga mama w'abaana akola ebintu by'ogambye. Ebyokubeera nga ateekawo platform okulaba nga taata w'abaana abawuliza. Kwegamba taleetawo kye bandiise ekibeera. Ekibeera taleetawo mbeera mbi. Kwegamba abaana bano nga kwegamba tayogera bintu bikyamu ku taata waabwe. Ayagala abaana bano bakule nga taata waabwe bamulaba nti kwegamba taata waabwe mulungi. Naye ate taata ate ng'akola opposite ng'alwanisa, kwegamba aleetawo embeera, ayagala okulwanya, kwegamba nga abizza ate maama w'abaana. So nga te maama ye ate tamubiza. Kati omukyala mu mbeera eyo akola atya? Kubanga ye nga ye aplayinze part ye okulaba nga abaana bano bahavinga contact ne taata waabwe, tateekawo mbeera kwegamba yakukaluubiriza, naye ate taata n'abeera nga ate amulwanyisa. Kati maama ali mu mbeera bw'etyo aba akola atya?
That's a very difficult one. Kubanga mama tasobola ye controlling taata chakola. That's where when we're thinking about mental health well-being, we're think about what you can control. What is within my control? So what is within my control is to allow the children to see their dad. Now, if their dad is starting to be uncivil with the mom has a choice not to respond, not to fight back. But you can't disconnect the children from the dad. Sister Hamida oba nkutegedde bulungi.
Sister mbuuza kati mu ngeri nga ey'okubeera nti maama tagezaako ku disconnecting abaana ku taata waabwe. Naye kati kwegamba nga waliwo ebintu taata w'abaana no byakola ebyaffectinga maama w'abaana. Kwegamba taata w'abaana nga alina akasajja ku mutima okuba nti maama w'abaana no ya moving on. Kati agezaako okuleetawo embeera kwegamba etali nnungi. Omukyala ne bw'agezaako okulongoosa. era kwegamba agezaako okulaba ng'ate alwanyisa kwegamba ekintu kye bandibadde bakola ng'abazadde b'abaana bano ababiri ate oli n'abeera nga bisabotaaginga busabotaaginzi.
Kakati ate awo gw'olowooza olinawo magezi ki?
Sister Rahma. Sister Rahma.
Naam.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi.
Alaikum salaam wa rahmatullah.
Omuzadde abuuzizza talina magezi naye tusooke twebuuze lwaki ekintu ekyo kibeerawo. Tusookere okutereeza ekireeta ensonga eyo kiki.
Anti naye kakati Hajat atugambye nti omusajja ndowooza ye mu mutima gwe akyamwagala oba omukyala.
Anti kyengezaako okulaga exactly kyenkugamba tusooke twebuuze lwaki kibeerawo. Omukyala ayagala kutereeza abaana bakule nga balaba taata waabwe. Wabula taata waabwe ate agezaako okulaga empisa nti oba maama mubi oba maama omutanjagaliza kubalaba. Obuzibu buvaawa eyo gye tuba tusookera ndowooza. Abazadde abali kuno abalina obuzibu abaana bayawukana ne bataata baabwe bakola batya. Abazadde nga temunnaba kusalawo omu kufuluma mu nnyumba ya munne. First sooka mulabe nga mwetadde buli omu ng'akooye munne nga ne bwamusanga ng'afumbiddwa talina kyajja kuwulira.
Lakini Hajati Kenya awo kyoyogedde tekisoboka.
Anti kati
kisoboka nti nedda ogambye nti babenga bonna babiri buli omu yeekooye munne. Kiri possible nti omu yalemeddwa omulala akyayagala. Naye nga Sheikh bwatusomesezza nti musobola okwetta, basobola okubakkiriza okwetta newankubadde omulala akyayagala naye ng'ono omulala ye kati amaze takyasobola.
Kakati ono akyayagala owabuzibu we bugenda okujjira olw'ensonga nti for example omukyala yakooye omwami n'afuluma omwami ng'akyamwagala. Ajja kuba akola sabotage okuleeta nga abaana abamukyayisa kuba yasigala n'omukwano mu mutima ogumwagala.
Kakati kye twagala nti abantu kati kye twagala nti abazadde kyenkugambye example gye nakuwadde nti we have to have two different circles in our family. Circle group circle emu eno egamba nti eno couple mukyala n'omwami. Kati saako eno endala egamba maama ne taata. Kakati eno omukyala n'omwami bwe kivaawo maama ne taata tekivaawo kisigalawo. Kakati bwe kiba kino maama ne taata kisigaddewo ono omwami newankubadde akyayagala mukyala we kigenda mu saako eri ey'omukyala n'omwami tekijja wano omutaata ne maama. Kati ffe abakulu ffe abazadde ffe tulina okukikola nti kati nze wano omukyala ono engeri gy'aba ng'avuddewo kati nze ndi mu group eno ya taata ne maama wanooka wenkolera. Newankubadde kiri gye kiri kinnuma bwe ndaba abaana bwe bajja okundaba oba bwe ngenda okuweereza kubawa ssente kukola ki nkolera mu saako eno ya parents, not lovers, not husband and wife, but mom and dad, and stay in that circle of mom and dad. If you come out of the circle of mom and dad, you are harming your children.
Kati awo we wali obuzibu kuba omwami bw'alaba omukyala ng'amuvinze ono ayina gy'ali agezaako okuleeta obukyayi bwe obw'okuba nti mu kifo ekyokuba nga oba omukwano guno aguteeka mu makkati basigale nga bakolagana bulungi ng'abazadde.
Kati awo mukwano guno wano okubeera mama ne taata kiri high, it's a very high it's of a very high context. It's not just being mama ne taata, but it's being a father or a mother. That is a responsibility given to you by Allah. So it is even bigger. So if you think the love for the woman who no longer loves you or the love for the husband who no longer loves you is getting in between you being a father or a mother to your children, that is going to cost you your relationship, is going to cost you not to fulfill your responsibility that Allah gave you. That's where it boils down to. So are you prepared to let go, to forfeit your responsibility with Allah? That's the question.
Assalamualaikum. Bananga, I'm really sorry. Ndaba era mikono bagitadde waggulu naye ku point eyo. Those two points, those two questions. Ababuuziza nti practically omuntu akoze atya. Oyina okuleetamu third party. Mulina okuleetamu someone ne mutuula ne mu having a what's called a contact agreement. Ne mumanya nti bano abaana ojja kuba obakubira ku Saturday kuva ssaawa bweziti paka bweziti. Ne muba nga mulina structure. Ekyo kiyamba nti eno mu bufumbo obupya bwe watandise tekireeta friction. Ate n'oli taata waabwe aba akyasobola okukola ki? Having that contact. So you have to be mulina okuteekawo structure. Naaba nga takuba bukubi mbasimu anytime. That's if obviously bano abasajja ababiri era nga Sheikh Zaid wakyogedde abasajja ababiri bayinza obutakwatagana. Naye muleetamu third party. Kyenabadde just njagala ku adding on that. Assalamu alaikum.
That's possible sometimes, and that's not possible sometimes. But where possible, it's very important to have the third party. Jazakallah khair, sister.
Sister Rahma, Sheikh Zaid kyeyagambye ekya ego y'abaami akugamba tebajja muwera mateeka ku baana be.
Kati nze njagala nnyo bring back this idea of being Islamically orientated. If we are Islamically orientated, and you know Islamic psychology is very, very powerful. So if we are Islamically orientated, so if the man doesn't want another man or this wife now for them to be telling him how to see the children or when and how to do it, Islam allows him to take his children. And then he has to allow the mom to have the access. So there's no two ways around it. You know, you can't have everything your way. If that woman is now married, there is a man in that house. So you can't be a man over another man's house. Islam doesn't give you that permission. Just because your children are in that house, it does not make you the man of the house. It makes you the father of the children. But not the man of the house. So the man of the house needs to be the man of the house. So then if you don't want them to dictate, you have the freedom to take your children. Islam allows you. Islam says if a woman gets married, that the children should go back to their dad, unless there is an agreement and a discussion between the two. So if you are Islamically orientated, you will be healthier mentally, because everything has got a solution. But our cultures where we live, all these, we've come to live here. There's cultures here that don't fit. We take all of them on. We have the women's rights, women's emancipation, feminist ideas. You know, we take all that on, and then we're so confused in what we do and what we don't do.
Sister Barakallah, Sister, quick question. I know it is Maghrib time. Are you going to pray Maghrib and come back? Because we still have a lot of hands up.
If you want me to, yeah, let's pray and then let's take at least 20 minutes and then come back. So let's say past. Should we come back at past?
Okay, those will be like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, mashallah.
Yeah?
Okay, Barakallah.
Okay, let's come back. Let's pray and then come back, inshallah.
Okay. For those in the UK, for those in the UK, I guess ngenda kujawa swala. Kabale US one tushabuzayo in my time zone ndabika nshabuzayo dakikanga 10 for dhuhuri. So we can keep the conversation going a little bit. No questions yet. Brother
tugenda ku mikono. I'm sorry, nange kanegate kubakereze mikono.
But then there was that we have the conversation a little bit.
Engeri gye bagenda okuyinda omusomesa akomewo. Ayogedde ekintu awo nti cultures ez'enjawulo zitu impacting. And if you have the Islamic culture and the Islamic psychology at heart, ngoli wired Islamically, things get easier. One thing I wanted to add is people most of us think you have to know what is confusing you to get confused. But really, you don't need to know what is confusing you to get confused. You will be confused anyway. Abantu. Mwanjereze kati wedda ndi mu dictionary ndi mukebera ninokomawo nokola comeback. Kyembadde ngamba nti she pointed out something very important. N'ekintu kyayogedde nga kikulu nnyo. Nti ebiseera ebisinga tugenda ne tuba nga to taking in a lot of cultures, a lot of explanations. Okay? And such explanations and ideologies and beliefs impact our behavior, decision making. Byonna bibera influenced nature. So ninjagala just to point out some fact I know, that you do not need to understand what is confusing you to get confused. So most people are confused and they think they have to be aware of what is confusing them. Naye ebimu ku bitusumbuwa kati abasinga obungi tetumanyi lwaki bitusumbuwa. This is why nze nganze mu busomesa bwange nkubiza nnyo abantu okutegeera we bawangaalira, okay, we babeera okubeera mindful ku ideas ki ze bapikinga okiraba n'abaana bennyini, because mu kaseera ng'oyagala kukola decisions, it is that got stored mu mutima gw'omubongo obwo that will act as reference okole decisions. Kati omusajja ng'oyo atayagala abijjisa abaana eri maama waabwe, kiri rare, bade sikimanyi nnyo, kitegeeza ayinza okuba akikola nga tamanyi na lwaki akikola. Kubanga osooka n'obeera Uganda, n'obeera gy'obeera, n'owuliriza by'owuliriza, n'osoma by'osoma, n'okkiriza by'okkiriza, n'obeera cocktail y'akavuyo, etali soul cocktail. Kati omaliriza akavuyo ku buli w'obeera kalabika ng'oconfusinga buli omu, naye nga gwe asembayo okukimanya. You don't actually know nti oli mu kukikola. So I think bwe twekwata ku Busiraamu Hajjat, Obusiraamu bubeere nga ye guide. Eswala tetuuka nga totunudde mu Qibla, Makka. So I think twetaaga okunoonya Qibla yaffe. Qibla yaffe we Busiraamu. Buli ky'oba oyagala okukola, yes, olina by'owulira, olina ego, naye tosobola. One thing ekiyinza okuyamba okweteeka mu mbeera entuufu, yimirirako bw'oti mu maaso ga Allah, bakubuuze lwaki wa confusing amaka g'oli ng'afumbiddwa, omugambe nalina ego nnene. Njagala weteeko mu maaso ga Allah kati okimugambe nga excuse ku lunaku nga atugabira jjana na muliro. Anti kati owulira kizito. Owulira it is very big, olina ego era oyagala kuconfusinga, naye weteeko mu maaso ga Allah mu kaseera nga ffenna tunafuye nga nothing matters anymore, kati akubuuza lwaki wakola bw'otyo mugaye munne nalina ego. If you don't feel the weight of that ego, if you don't feel the weight of whatever idea and belief, kimanye nti ku lunaku lw'enkomerero ekigenda okuzitowa kyokka ye la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That is the only thing that will carry weight. So let us stick to la ilaha illallah. N'ekyo la ilaha illallah kyetugamba tubeere ng'endowooza yaffe yonna etambulira okwo. Kati then ego eba opportunity yakola ibada na kusembera eri Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Kuba ffenna alina kyeyatuteekamu nga kitukola kitugezesa. Abamu bakemebwa bintu bya njawulo, oyinza okuba nga gwe ego yo kyekikusumbuwa. Make a good use of that to inspire a lot more rewards ku mizaani yo. You control it nga bw'obeera muntu mulungi mpola mpola, ogifunemu empeera okusinga okusala ku nsi kuba omukyala yagenda ne ku akhira kubanga ojja kubonerezebwa. That is what I wanted to add ku bigambo ebyo.
So Sheikh, kati kyogamba nti imaani ebesse nti is it simanyi na how I can term it. Kugamba tusigaza shahada ffenna yetugatta, and you have to think of tomorrow kuba oba ogenda kufa. Kati bw'aba balina ego eyo, that si n'abaami bokka be babeera ne ego kubanga n'abakyala nabo banyiiga bamanyi okubeera extremely bitter and that energy neegenda ne ku baana so olwo tugambe nti kigambo subhanallah tugambe nti mbuno subhanallah ekigambo mbadde nkyogedde kigenze nti obusiraamu oba bukendedde nti oba in that state bw'obeera n'obusungu ego ng'eri waggulu nti obusiraamu oba bukendedde, should I say that?
Exactly. Hajati mu kaseera w'owulirira ego oba weefudde nti gwasembayo bunene olina okuba nga olina obwakatonda bwe weewuliramu ng'owulira nga asobola okutta amaka g'oli ojjamu malako ebiseera ebisinga tugenda okubonereza abalala n'obabonyaabonya tuba tumaze okwewa a lot of power okiraba munda muffe naye buli wojjukira nti Allah gy'ali waggulu tosobola kusigaza maanyi mu mutima gwe oba ojja kumenyeka kakati toyinza kunenyezebwa lwakuba munyiivu na lwakwagala kino eky'obuntu osigale nga gwakulirawo naye jjukira nti waliyo akulira omutuufu buli w'omujjukira n'abanga ajja it takes practice nga buli w'oyagala okuwulira bw'otyo tastahdhir like weteeka mu presence ya Allah tabaraka wa taala just okaminga ego yo down kubanga Allah gy'ali waggulu eyo otherwise n'entalo zonna ne gundi yanyiiziza ne gundi nja mubonereza tojja kuba musanyufu kamuloge bijja lwakuba owulira ng'olina amaanyi ag'enjawulo agabonereza ekitonde kya Allah. But when you always try to be in the presence of Allah munange oluba okumujjukira bwoti something happens ku mutima gwo omenyeka abadde agenda okukyunya omuntu n'omuta kubanga okimanyi naawe waggulu awo waliwo asobola okusalawo naawe n'onyigirizibwa. One final thing kukyanyinza okugamba ku ekyo abantu tutegeere nti it is almost impossible to stay happy or alive without Allah's intervention mu bulamu bwaffe. Variables nyingi nnyo Hajat wano we tuli wennyini gwe essimu gy'okuteesobola okukwabikirako anytime basobola okukubira essimu nga something has gone wrong ekizimbe mwotudde. There are many variables. Allah singa yali tayingira mu bulamu bwaffe kutuprotectinga naffe abaagala okukyunya bannaffe singa naffe twafadde asobola tuleka. No one can handle the variables of life nga Allah takwatiddeeko traffic ebizimbe. There is a lot of danger and harm around us. N'amajini weegali asobola okugakuteera ne gakukola ki? So mu kaseera ng'oyagala kugejja munda naawe okyunye just understand naawe owangayira ku mase ya Allah. I think such an attitude ejja kutuyamba.
Sekashra. Sister Spans kisonyiwa okuyingira mu katono naye nina ky'enjagala okubuuza Sekashrafu. Sekashrafu waliwo ekigambo okwesonyiwa. Omuntu ne yeesonyiwa ekintu olw'obusungu bw'aba alina ku kintu ekyo n'agamba nti kankyesonyiwe kubanga bwe naakigendako Mungu ayinza n'okumbonereza nyizo. Kati mu kwesonyiwa kuno ne bamutegeera bubi. For example omusajja ayawukanye n'omukyala oba omukyala ayawukanye n'omwami kantwale ku sayidi y'omusajja naye neyeesonyiwa olwa bitterness eriwo neyeesonyiwa situation yonna eyinza okubeerawo naga nti n'abaana ndibalaba nga bakuze. Kakati olowooza abakule kubanga eyo si ego naye akulembezezza atidde Allah mu ekyo ne yeesonyiwa abantu obutakola zambi ante ddene ekyo kyogerako kiseera.
Kakati Sheikh Zaidi engeri gy'oli munafiki munnange okimanyi bulungi nti waliwo fiqh owa ma'alat ebintu gye biraga okusinziira nga bw'enda bye gye biraga ne fiqh wa imagination otuula wansi n'oimagininga nti ekintu kiyinza okubaawo kiyinza obutabaawo ekiba kibaddewo kyalibaddewo ekiti that kind of fiqh nobawo ne fiqh wa reality owaba aima abasinga obungi ekintu kigwawo ne tusooka tukisolvinga soma case by case. Nze ndowooza mu mbeera efaananako bweti kiddayo ku kumanya omusajja oyo kwe yeemanyi ne kiddayo ku kumanya kwamanyi munne kubanga ku nkomerero ya byonna ndowooza mukadde wange enneemanya gye weemanyi n'okumanya kw'omanyi munno nakiki kyotebereza okubaawo ku myaka gye muwangadde osobola okukola decisions ezifaanana bwe zityo si mu mutima mubi nkakasa decision eyo gwe ne Allah wo muba mugimanyi bwebanga ya bulungi era Allah ajja kubumanya ajja giteekamu tawfiq ne baba baana baba bajja kukola ki kukusanga mu mutima mulungi naye waliwo ne side ya fiqh endala kati abo bosomye ma alat gye binaggwera naye osobola okusoma ate outcome eri beyond that waliwo omuntu ayinza oganze nja kusoma outcome esukkaawo ndabe kiki kigenda kukola ki abaana bange singa ate mba sibali kumpi kwebyo bye mbaagalamu nga bo waliwo amaka agamu ng'omukyala ni waba n'abaana tofuna buzibu already makama mawali mu bulungi mbala ne bakulire tolina problem naye akaseera katuuka nga ate teweetaaga oluzinge maka oluzinge n'abaana baakwo kubanga weetaaga abaana balongoofu banaakola ki kati kisinzira scenario gye mubaamu nze kisinza kuba na
embeera oyinza okuba nga omuntu ogezaako swaburu naye nga swaburu eyo omuntu olinga ejja kuyisaamu ate it affects ibaada z'endala yadde ne swala yadde ne relationship yo n'abantu abalala nobeeraawo nga abantu balabye esseeka bagenda mu depression ne stress nebabeera neyasalanga jjama nga takyajjana ku muzikiti because engeri gye bamuyisizaamu ng'agezezzaako naye nga nekigaana so omuntu oyo bw'agamba nti kanneesonyiwa embeere wano bwe nti Mungu alinsalirawo
muzeeyi wange alina akantu ke yayogera kakasharinge nammwe naye nga eringa principle naye weegendereza w'ogikozeseza togamba nti Seekashirafu yansudde mu bizibu yaŋŋamba nti mwana wange bw'olabanga nga tobitegeera bulungi okkirizanga ne bakunenya obutabaako ky'oyogera okusinga okukunenya lwaki wayogedde kati ng'ategeeza nti okunenyezebwa obutayogera kisinga okunenyezebwa okwogera ebitakwatagana oba mu kiseera ky'otalina kukola ki kwogera nze ndowooza okutekinga break eyo okwewala akavuyo it is important mba nzikanya naawe wabula should that be forever ekyo kyeninamu ki olw'okuba buli muntu alina embeera ze ne case mu mbeera ze mbadde nze nteesa bwe nti twetaaga okwongera amaanyi mu support system yaffe ng'abasiraamu we need Muslim psychologists we need support or creating all professions ezituyambako okuyita mu mbeera efaanana bweti kubanga tulina okwapreciatinga while we are in Muslim minority countries naye amazima gali nti sharia yetufuga kakati tugenda ne tuba nga buli we tufuna obuzibu nga buno tuddukira mu mateeka ag'ensi oba mu solutions ezitali mu Katonda ku nkomerero ya byonna ne bitulema because our relationship is unique. It has a unique set of laws. Kati we need to just put effort. Omanyi tulina ebizibu bye tuyitako ne tugenda ku bitali bizibu Sheikh Zaid. I think ekyo okirabye. Tusobola okudiscussinga nnyo ku bintu ebiri ewala ne tulabira nti tulina okuteekamu amaanyi mu kukola waako ono oba okuteekawo counseling gundi zaffe z'abasiraamu oba like social support eyaffe ng'abasiraamu family support ng'erimu ki waliwo efforts ze tuli mu kukola mu Soul Cocktail.
Discussing ekirabu kya Seekashirafu nti takirina naye ng'ate ne tawhidi eri tamumanyi kati discussinga kiri wala nnyo nga tolina okusooka ku discussinga ku tawhidi.
Waliwo actually eyo yennyini ensonga ya inspiring a course entonotono mu Soul Cocktail gye tuyita fiqh of marriage nti you cannot navigate those waters without knowing the law. Bino byonna bye twepankapankamu I love him, we love each other, do you know the law egenda okugoverninga contract eyo? Because you're going to leave the contract. Unlike other contracts, zogula n'otunda n'osazaamu nga bw'oyagala without whatever. this particular contract ejirako abaana, ejirako families, ejirako. So how are you going to navigate through nga tomanyi mateeka okujjako okumanya nti kati baatuwoowa kati njagala okwawukana seeka nkola te nga twagala okwawukana oyinza n'okibuuza nga mwayawukanye dda emirundi egisukka ne muki. So understanding the Islam, okutegeera obusiraamu, then tugatteko nze njaga sharia weeri n'amateeka weegali tuyite Hajat Rahma asomesa atukolereka course nga kabasiraamu ka family psychology, tulete seka zaidi, tulete tuzimbe some institution esobola okusupportinga community yaffe ngaffe abasiraamu abali mu Uganda oluna Kenya kuba tuyina bingi. So these bino byebimu kuwaaka omuzibuzibu buli omu gwe yeewala naye nga ate tumaliriza nga ate yatukosa kuba tugenda okumaliriza nga abaana balina okufumbirwa kati n'olyoka ondabira waliwo ne Uganda ekizibu ekirala twayawukana naye abaana mbagabira wange kyokka ate maama yagenda kyokka ne mukazi mujja kati alina okujja ku mbaga kuba abaana sibagabira bukojja kitegeera kati tuyina akavuyo kaffe ng'abasiraamu nga kayingiramu n'Obuganda, kayingiramu confusion bye tusomye, kalimu philosophies ez'enjawulo. Like I said, nga inviting omugenyi waffe kuba ndaba akomyewo, you don't need to know what is confusing you to get confused. You don't need to be aware. You will still be confused. However, Qibla eriemu, Qibla is Islam. Singa tunywerera ku Busiraamu, that is our Qibla. It doesn't matter chiche wasoma, chiche bagamba, chi ekiriwa, come back to Islam. Bw'ono oyagala okutunulako ku dhuhuri e Makka, kwasiri otunuleko e Baitul Maqdis, ku Isha otunuleko e Uganda, ogenda kuba ndoza kankikomya wa makulu gavudde.
Seka shafu nga tugimaliye ensonga zikaliriziganya naawe ku nsonga y'okuteeka Allah tabaraka taala aging God out kisinga okuba ekibi, which is ego, aging God out n'omusawali nti basahaba be basinga okuwasa baka bannaawe nga baba divorcinze nga baba batadde nga tebakkiriza muntu mukyala kubeeraawo nga talina mwami nga omutadde nga yamwogeza n'amutwala and tewabeerawo any friction. So ndowooza ekintu ekyo kyava kubeera nti baateekaka Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala waggulu obufumu ne bubatambuliranga bulungi.
Ekyo kituufu nnyo n'omukyala yajja nga yeewa nabbi omujjukira nabbi bwe yamugaana sahaba teyasigala tetulina obujulizi bulaga nti sahaba oyo yalumirizanga omukyala oyo nti wayagalana nabbi nakusabayo lwampaka wayagalanga nabbi twetaaga okutegeera obusiraamu kyebukola kiti. Hajat Rahma, we've taken part of your time.
No problem.
But all of these hands were waiting for you to come back.
But I think
we can proceed.
One of the things that one of the things that I was thinking about is there is we are taught a dua where we say Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqa warzuqna ittiba'.
Wow.
وَأَرِنَا الْبَاطِلَ بَاطِلًا وَارْزُقْنَا اجْتِنَابَهُ. So one of the things that we need to think about when we have all these classes and all the shuyukh is asking Allah to give us the rizq of following and implementing what we are learning as right and what we are learning as wrong to change. If we are coming, in the Muslim community, I have been in this business of teaching women in the Muslim community for many years. One of the challenges we have, it almost becomes a trend. We're meeting up to listen to Sister Rahma. No, we are meeting up to remind each other, what are we doing on this journey? Where are we journeying to? Where are we going? That's one question. The other thing that you guys were talking about is marriage. What is marriage in Islam? Marriage in Islam is ibadah. How? The Prophet ﷺ told us that when you get married, you fulfill half of your deen. So if we are not thinking about everything in the idea of ibadah, then we're in trouble. That's why I said, if your home is not Islamically orientated, solutions are challenging. But if you're Islamically orientated, there is a solution for every problem. But the more we as parents are in that tug of war, we are hurting our children. That's the bottom line. Bottom line is, you want your children to be happy, you have to treat their mom good. because her mental health will impact the mental health of the children. You want the children to be happy if they're living with their dad, you have to treat dad good because his mental health will impact their mental health. So we have to love our children for real, because that's the love that doesn't end. The love of mom and dad can start and end. The love and the responsibility of our children starts with Allah to us, and we stand in front of Allah to answer about our children. So then we have to do everything, put ourselves on the side to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our children. And you know, the best thing about children is they don't remain children for life. So you just need to be patient. It's a couple of years and they're done. They're grown up and everyone moves on. But we're killing ourselves, and in the process, we're destroying our children's mental health, their chances of being in healthy working relationships, their ability to know who they are. And if we're here in the West, they even don't know their Allah. How are you going to tell your children to believe in Allah in a place where belief is a challenge, when all your behavior contradicts that belief? Should we take the questions? I think I've said enough.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. We can take the questions, please.
Okay.
Tulina Farida.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sister tweyanza nnyo tweyanzeega omusomo gwaffe barakallahu fi. Kansubire ekibuuzo kyange nkyakijjukira.
Kiwandiise.
Mbadde mbuuza ku situation, omanyi bw'obadde otusomesa otugambye nti abazadde tuyige okugamba abaana obuteeyingiza mu nsonga zaffe. Kati mbuuza ku situation kuba usually abaana bwe baba bakula ba-creating a bond, oba omuwala na-creating a bond ne taata we, omulenzi na-creating a bond ne maama we. Naye I'm thinking of a situation nga omwana naturally ayina obusungu. Katugeze nga oba ayagala nnyo taata we oba ayagala nnyo maama we. Naye nga it doesn't matter oba ani oba nsonga ki oba nsenga ki, nga naturally agenda kusidinga ne the other party. Kati ne wabaawo situation like even before divorce, omwana n'abeera nga behavior eri challenging owa omuzadde oli omulala kuba ye bondi ye erina part emu. How would you advise a parent ali mu situation eyo, kati let alone in divorce kuba kati it's gonna escalate the behavior singa divorce ebaawo?
Kakati ndoza, the first question would be a bit more clarity. I know the question is quite general, but when you say the child is maybe bonded with mom more or dad more, and therefore they're taking sides, what is it that they're taking sides on? It has to be that it's something is in the open and it's being talked about. But we know in our work and in research that teenage children get angry anyway. When there is a divorce, they become angry towards one parent or both parents. So that's a different emotion for these teenage children. But what is it that the children are siding on with? What are we, the people that they're feeling a strong bond to, are telling them? As a mother, am I saying, tata we yakoze bwati, yangambye bwati, yatalese kino, takoze kino, oba tata mgamba mwana we mwala, tata mama we yakoze bwati. What are we feeding the children? Why are they in that situation of taking sides?
Omwana ayinza okuba nga maybe obanga daddy we amulaga nnyo love. So nga ye tomugamba, mami tasobola namugamba anything when it comes to dad. In a situation nga ye tewali nsonga nti oba mama mugamba bino oba tata mugamba bino, naye nga ye just anything to do with mom or dad, so you don't say anything.
Okay, Kakati, the question is, what happens if the divorce happens? Is that the question? Are you still there, Farida? Have we lost?
Yeah, that was the question, Sister.
So the question is, what happens if the divorce happens?
Yeah, what advice would you give?
So the advice would be very clear-cut, depending on the age of the children. If the child who sides with dad is completely going to torture this mother mentally and emotionally, because blaming the mom and being rough, rude, and rowdy, then the parents have to decide if this child goes with the parent they favor. And if the child is staying, then the parents have to completely work together to support the parent who is staying with the children in the behaviors of the children. But it all depends on the age, and it depends on the relationship. Remember, one of the key things that I said in research, the relationship before the divorce. What is going on there? What are the parents doing now before the divorce happens with the children who are siding? How are we helping those children to remember that anything to do with husband and wife, they are not involved. They are only involved in everything to do with mom and dad. We really completely want to separate the two things. Are you angry with me as your mom, or are you angry with me as your dad's wife? If you're angry with me as your dad's wife, that's not your area. Your area is me as your mother. So there's these two very, very different roles: the couple relationship and the parental relationship. And the children, it's advisable for the children not to enter the couple relationship.
I think, yeah, it does. But I think most problems come when the children have seen mother cheating on dad, or dad cheating on mother. Yeah. There's that hatred. I don't know how we can support children.
I know, and in the work that I do with the young people in camps or wherever, those are the kinds of things we work with. So they're very angry with the parent because they cheated on them, they had an affair. In Muslim families, I've worked with girls who are saying, my dad has another wife in Pakistan, for example. So those are things that make children really angry. But we stop ourselves as parents and ask ourselves one thing: are we raising our children from an Islamic orientation? Because if we are, then they understand that they can't get too involved in the affairs of mom and dad in their love life. Yes, they can be angry, but it has a limit of how much anger they can have, and then how do they express that anger on another parent. Again, Islam has to be the thing that is at the forefront. But yes, I do understand they do get angry, they get annoyed, they resent the parent and everything else. We see all that, and we work to help them. We help them to work through that, to find a space where they can place their anger. Sometimes it's a misplaced anger. Sometimes it's fear. You know, on the surface, we see anger. In therapy, we can access other feelings. But sometimes anger is what shows up, but there's other things going on. If we can address those other things going on, sometimes the anger just comes down. So for the parents, you have to, if you have an auntie who can talk to the child who is very pro the other partner and is getting rude and rough, then you need to approach someone to speak to them if you think you can't speak to them. But then again, that's where I ask the question: where have you been to get to a point where you can't speak to your child? They don't listen to you. What is the orientation in your family? Are you Islamically orientated, or are you living here or anywhere else in that case, whereby the parents' role and the hishma, the respect for the parents is lost? Because in Islam, parents have to be respected, even if you don't agree with them. So how are we raising our children? How are we teaching them who we are? You know, in the systems where we live, anybody who works within the system, you know that parents have the least rights. Children have the most rights. But in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us as parents rights, and children, they are given rights. So are we helping our children to know what our rights are as their parents? Even if they're not pleased with us, how they approach us, how we speak about it, has to be from a position of parent and child, not equal.
Okay.
So how are we doing that?
There's lots of messages in the chat. My God, I couldn't catch up. Okay, Sister Rashida Nava, unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shibuzo Chembuza, I have my sister in Islam, so she got, it's not even marriage. Whatever from Birigana, then they separated with the man and he was a non-Muslim. So later on, the children stayed at the dad's side. So then later on, Nabana Navajayo, Kakati Chembuza. Does her still need to kubantu abana like a bonding that connection kubaba ya Canada? That's some misunderstandings in Baberanga Umchala Salawo Naberanga. She makes her children to be converted to Islam kubaba chalibana bato. So kati umchalo ya aino kudamweda Naberanga yaninga gamba babana mutata wa wejali, something like that, over she has to move on as the way she has been moving on. Kubanga she has been moving on for nga taina tatawa babana na inga kusasira kwa Allah. So simanyi I know kusigalanga bonding at that bond kubata tawe, he's a non-Muslim and she's like they separated for a very long time. So abadabira n'abana bene wa mama we, so Madensa bakuntangaza mwawo still abaina okuddeyo natwala babani waabwe oba it's okay yokubeera n'abaana be.
Ndooza kye tubadde twogerako nti oba omukyala n'omwami bayawukanye, kati omwami ng'ayagala access to baana ng'omukyala amugaana, oba maama ayagala access to baana ng'omwami amugaana. Naye bino bwe baba nga they've already worked through it, they're separate, the children don't know the dad, there's no relationship, nobody's blocking anybody to see the children. I don't know if that's what we are talking about, and I don't think we need to go back into those things. But when that time comes and that dad wants access to the children, that's when you have to start thinking about it. But I think now, if things are working as they are, then there's no need to, they say don't fix it if it's not broken. Did I understand you, Rashida? Rashida?
Yes.
Yeah, did I understand your question? Nakutegede bulungi?
No.
Yeah, sikutegede?
Yes.
Okay, you have to tell me the question in English now. Because I thought what I thought you're saying is, there is a woman who is a Muslim, but she married, yes. She had children with a non-Muslim man. And then the children went to live with a non-Muslim father.
Yes.
And then after some time, the mother took the children.
Yes.
But now she's raising her children as Muslims.
Yes.
So what you're saying is, should she now be trying to make the children have a relationship with their non-Muslim dad?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to.
So then what I'm saying is, we're not saying she needs to. If he is not coming to ask for access and having a relationship with the children, then no, she doesn't need to. But the other thing also is, when the children are still very young and the religions are different, so if their mother is trying to raise them as Muslims, if they're still very young and the dad is not a Muslim, and if he doesn't approve of the children being raised as Muslims, he will confuse the children. So in that case, sometimes it's better if there is no contact. So case by case is different, but generally speaking, we are saying, let's not deny one parent contact just because we are divorced or separated, generally. But then when we're looking at case by case, then we can think about it differently.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Sister, Brother Salim,
forever.
Kenya.
Mbadde nti mbuuza nti kati olwo abaana olwokubanga omukyala yabazaala ku mwami atali mukatudi oba atali musiramu oba mukatudi protestant. I'm asking Sister Rahma. Abaana baba tebajja kuddayo okulaba taata waabwe forever oba abaana bwe babuuza maama abagambe nti taata gyali oba like
taata gyali
in Islam abaana nti babeera ba mukyala
abaana abatali mu ndoa abaana abatali mu marriage naye kakati kyetugamba wano kino kirala nnyo tekikwatagana ne kitubadde twogerako kyetubadde twogerako kibadde nti bw'ebeera nga divorce ebaddewo abaana tubakola tutya kati ne tugamba nti abaana tetuba cut off ku muzadde omulala naye kakati kino kirala kisoundinga nga waliwo arrangement omukyala yavaayo abaana kwanza ne basigala ne taata oli ate oluvannyuma ne bajja ne babeera ne maama naye kakati tewaliwo nti pushing and pulling nti njagala baana sijja bakuwa nedda kati abuuza bubuuza nti kati baddeyo bakolagane should she create a relationship between the children and their father. We are saying if the father is not looking for that relationship, no, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think
it makes sense though.
Yeah, if the guy is already out of their life,
if you have communication, mutual communication, then you maintain the mutual communication.
But if it's not there, khalas, it's done.
Yeah.
Kakati kisinzira kakati ondozo omukyalo ono kyalina okukola alina okubuuzako mashekh kwa ajili it's a bit complicated hapa hakuna ndoa, they are not married. Alafu the man is not a Muslim. Where is she in her life from an Islamic perspective? So I think she will need to get some one-on-one advice from a sheikh. We can't address it in a general open. So if she came to my therapy room, I would address it. But here we're talking generally. It's very difficult to address very specific, unless it's your question and you want the answer for it. But I think that is a question that is a bit complicated that would need to go to one of the sheikhs. I think, inshallah, we have a few here. So I don't know if there's anyone who wants to come in. And
we have Sheikh Ashraf is on. We have Sheikh Mir Kalantan, Abu Hayyan Kalantan.
Yeah, khalas. We have a few people, alhamdulillah. So they can come in if they choose to.
Sheikh Kalantan, kibuuzo oba Sheikh Ashraf.
Well, personally, mpaka ngambuzize ekibuuzo nga kirimu sharia concern. She needs to ask something ekya sharia nga yagala kukimanya. Naye oba ompise engwe mu nnyanja like an ocean to start swimming here and there. So I think bwabanga ina sharia concern is specific. Nina ze entebereza as a person ebiri mu background. Naye I don't want to think for her.
I guess one of the questions was wabanga omuzadde omulala si musiraamu. Do you maintain communication? No more abaana. Yes.
Well, communication kuchi.
Do you maintain that understanding? Do you or man obaleka ne bagende waabwe? Because this culture then comes in. Anyana mugaba, anyana kolata. So obusiramu. What would you do obusiramu?
Well, not kakati mu bintu byonna byonna mfa abasiraamu tukulembeza kukuuma nzikiriza. Belief, aqida, okitaba kati obukkiriza bw'abaana bugenda kuba damaged kwenkanaki. Because in the end, fe mu sharia omuntu kala aluzinga ekitaawe nga taluzinze aqida. Nkolagana ye ne Katonda. Okay? So mu byonna byonna bye tugenda okukola ne counseling anaabawo mu maaso twetaaga protecting enzikiriza y'abaana nga tusinziira ku kumanya how the other families handling their attitude a lot of factors okukkiriza keeping a contact. Nkimanyi waliwo fatwa oyinza okuba tempted okugamba nedda oli si musiraamu temukola bwe tuti, but that is while that is important to know as a sharia fact, it is also another sharia fact to understand the reality of the matter. Kiraba kati abaana mu community mwe bali si nsiraamu tebimanyi ebyo. It has consequences okuba nti tebacommunicating nga n'oli mwami. Nze ku lwange kyendowooza nti wadde nga oba abaana mu sharia baba ba maama in this case ekyo tekigaana. Okay, that is there. Naye amazima gali nti biologically oli ekitaabwe. Okay, so mu mateeka ga sharia geetaaga okuba nti gafuga relationship y'abaana nga nti ono ye maama waabwe ne taata waabwe tujja gakozesa. But also the background ya community mwawangaalira, what will happen, the confusion the kids will have to go through, yeetaaga okutunuulirwa okulaba butya tuyinza okusolvinga problem nga tutaddawo nti sina babo mu ddiini sina babo mu ddiini mbatutte tugenda okumaliriza nga akavuyo keeyongedde. But bottom line mu bintu by'abaana mu busiraamu enzikiriza yaabwe n'eddiini yaabwe comes first. Ekyo kye tukolerako.
Kakati, there is some comments in the comments. So somebody says, me, I think that their contact with their dad is not going to compromise their deen. When it compromise their deen, then it's fine. Ikirala oyo tata agaba mwana we mu bufumbo kuba sharia wise si tata we. Kati ndala question neja negamba. Ate when, now if we are saying that it's okay for them to go, Naima agamba, ate when he wants them for Christmas celebrations, what happens? It's just a question.
Well, imagining that is the kind of fiqh abamanyi abamu gye bagamba is not important. Abamanyi balindanga for something to happen, then we can solve it. Kubanga ebiseera ebisinga ekintu bwe kihappeninga kiba ne context. But now tuba tugenda kukiddamu, then to imagining a context, we keep on moving from here to there. Answering kino ng'oddamu kino nga nakino kibuuzibwa, it becomes a fiqh class. Because that is a good thing mba musoma mu fiqh. But solving problems is abantu, we shall need a specific incident, a specific team to solve a particular issue, to pave a way forward. Nayenga ebyetaaga okumanyika mu ddiini bimanyikiddwa, abaana ba maama, abaana balina kuba basiraamu, like the general things we have to know. Priorities ziruwa okiraba. Then context y'ekibuuzo yeetaaga okumanyika. You can't just give a fatwa tekikkirizibwa, because right now mu nsi ezimu tuyina abaana abali ebweru w'obufumbo nga bali above 50%. Kati when you give such a fatwa, olina okuba ng'oli careful okuba nti toleetera abantu kuba confused even more. Twetaaga okuba careful. I think as we look to the micro sharia, we look at the macro picture as well to see what is happening mu ngeri ey'ewala. I can't add more to that.
Yeah. Micro, macro, barakallahu fikum, Sheikh Ashraf. Tuinako brother Rajiba. I think Rajiba's sister, I'm sorry if I'm not sure. Then Tuinako.
But unmuted, but that's my. And the muchala now, someone like tomorrow. Sorry. That's fine. This told me actually like the walk away that door ya interaction tata sokutwala omwana mama sokutwala omwana neno waberanga abana baba feedinga musibirungi abana baba feedinga musibirungi naye my other bit is wabanga jabatwala atenge bityo bagirayo kulaba really tebiri ku mulwamwa gwa busiramu oba nabatwala weekends nenga liyo bidongo oba bichi. So in that line era mbanina okweyongera okuleka omwami w'omukyalo okutwala abaana. Then my other request is mwabadde mugambye nti sister Bibi ajja kutuwa ku contact details there, because we would love to contact her privately, please.
Okay, we'll find her office line. We shall get it for you, inshallah.
So the question is, I'm going to try and see if I've understood the question. That I'm raising my children and I'm very conscious about how the home is, the environment, and it's very Islamically orientated. But the partner that the other parent that I've separated from, when they take the children, their life, their household is not very Islamically orientated.
Yes.
So maybe I've taken the position that I'm not playing music in my home, but my partner is playing music in their home. Should I still allow the children to go? I think just because their other partner is not Islamically orientated does not remove the fact that they're still a parent. So the idea is that you have to continue teaching your children what you believe is right. But I think they still have to meet the other parent as part of the right that that's their parent.
Okay.
But I don't know if the sheikhs want to add, but the way I think about it, if we're thinking about the rights of the parents, the rights of the children, and the mental health and well-being, you can't prevent your children from seeing their other parent just because that parent is not Islamically orientated. As long as they are not inviting them to do things that are clearly forbidden. So if they're starting to involve them in doing things that are clearly forbidden, like they're giving them a boyfriend or they're giving them a girl, yani they're encouraging them to go into premarital relationships, let's go to a nightclub, let's go for a drink. I think if it's usual stuff like they're not praying or they're listening to music, they pray but they're listening to music, I think you have to be confident in your teaching because you are the resident parent. Children live with you.
So where where do you draw the line in what happens to the other parent's home in relation to the children and what they do?
Yeah.
Because if you want to say, you tell the child, "Togenda yo chitawo tasala, tokola otya." So where do you draw the line without involving the children?
Sasa unamwambia omwana bwaba agendayo mwambia tewerabira okusala. You have to remember you pray.
Okay.
What else? What do you think, Sister Hafsa? What do you think?
Do you think you should? I really think the line has to be drawn. Kumanga, if you, for instance, don't want that ex or kubenanga later rules in your home, then you have to be very cautious about making the rules that happen in the other home, even if you may not be happy with what their rules are. So the friction comes there. Kubanga, there will be, I know for instance of a parent here, Gamba, omwana wange mulwadde tala ebintu bisiike, tala food out. Kati bw'abeera eri bamutwala out. You know, nalia fast food atenze sibyagala. Omwana bw'akoma weeno, you know, the sibimuwa. So knowing what happens in the other home, you have to draw the line. Is not your business. Because sometimes I think we fail to draw that line. And when we fail to draw that line, the friction comes in. And that friction hurts the children.
Maybe nze nja kukubiriza abantu kusoma dini, because sometimes you can't really know the line when you don't know the religion. Kati waliwo amazambi tumanyi families nyingi nga zikuliddemu music nene zitufulumizaayo basheka tubasheka nenga waka waliwo music. N'ekirala omuntu alina okuba sincere ku kiki ekimuluma, because sometimes I think kyotayagala eri si kyoba toyagala exactly, oba olina ensonga yendala naye nga kati ofunye a way to package it. Singa wali tokyagala nnyo kyekyali kwawudde naye tekyakwawula naye yakirina ng'okimanyi ne musigala mwenna ne mukudivorcinga. It was not the reason you put across noga nti yino tugyawukaniddeko ku music for example. So I think twetaaga okwongera okusoma eddiini, okumanya amadaala ga haramu, kiki ekigaanibwa and lwaki kigaanibwa, like okuba with that general knowledge about Islam kiyamba omuntu okumanya kati how should I handle this, because we have many times nabi weyaleka haramu n'agenda maaso because nga alina hope nti wali maaso agenda kukola ki kumukwata, because it is about the whole person, not a particular incident. Kati ku baana it is about the whole person, the kid is becoming, not a particular incident. You have to put all the pieces together and see how to approach. Nze kyovolaba ngenda ku emphasizing, I think tuli mu mulembe nga now tuli aware how much we need to have personal sheikhs nga tulina personal doctors and lawyers. Temudamu kugamba nti tetulina mirimu baseeka. Bino bye tulina okukola. Okiwulira Hajat Hasfa. Now tosobola kuddayo n'osoma ddiini naye
Sheikh Ashraf oyagala buli ali kuno afune GP we ow'eddiini.
Buli omu afune sheikh we nga asobola okuguidinga because emyaka mingi ng'osoma wano kyokka ate olira omwana onaagenda okumaliza sharia ogisoma ng'omwana naye akuze gy'asoma. So weetaagawo munne yasomerera mwene embeera. Baseeka mbakubidde akalanga awo baleke obbaga nti temulina mirimu.
Sheikh Ashraf nga nyongezaako katono, bisimillahi rahmani rahim. Abantu batandise okusoma late. Abantu betwogerera nako emyaka nga 16 emabega 2 baali sente ze zaali maaso gaabwe okusinga okusoma. Era n'amasomero aga Uganda gola gadizayininga nga bagamba okusoma oluzungu n'eddiini tibagifaako wadde era nga n'emiziki tegiriiyo. Kati aba just wake up. Naye bano hukumu eno gye baleeta eriredde naddala wano mu England, tulina famire nyingi ezaafumbirwa bwe zityo. Ezaafumbirwa olwajjano bayagala ipapula n'afumbirwa omusajja atali musiraamu. Ebimala oggwa n'agenda. Naga nze nvuddeyo nali nkimye ebipapula. Wabeerawo agendayo naga nali njagala kkala ya muzungu. Tubalina famire nyingi naye azimu tuziggyeyo nga tukusinziira kubanga albi eno albi gy'owangaaliramu gy'okoleramu hukumu nga bw'ogambye nti tuwangaalira wano tulaba hukumu ki tubayamba tutya bano abazaddemu batali basiraamu. N'abasinga obungi walillahi alhamdu bavuddeyo, agenda n'atwala abaana be wiikendi ate ennaku ezisinga maama we n'abeera naye ne babasomesa n'eddiini ne bavaayo insha Allah. Naye ekino kyogamba nti basome eddiini abantu badde tiwali asoma ddiini. Ate nene Zoom ogiraba nga wabuuza ebibuuzo olaba nga oli abadde empty mu by'obusiraamu. Ng'abadde ddala kuba tibaafuna musingi ku bwaka. N'oluusi baava mu famire zaabwe nga taata yasaala yekka oba maama yasaala yekka. Kati wano Mungu abawadde chance okusoma, tulina kussaamu maanyi kubasomesa na bayamba mu ngeri ey'emu enjawulo. Kati sooka olaba abaala baffe bonna abajja wano ku Zoom bajja bambadde nga busiraamu kibataakolanga. Wano e Bungereza olwawunywa okulaba kati abawala abasiraamu bonna bambala hijab tekyaliwo edda. Kati ddiini egenda ddiini Islaami naamiya egenda ekola bukuzi. Wannumu esaana kubanga tugigira ki tugikuuma mu ngeri emu oba endala. Omuntu abanga azadde mwana omusajja atali musiraamu, abaana abakkirize balabe taata waabwe, abaana bagoberera nnyo empisa za maama waabwe. Maama abagamba kino na kino na kino era abagulira emmere yabalabirira. Abaana bakkiriza nti taata waffe si musiraamu, maama waffe musiraamu, tuli basiraamu. Era ni ku masomero bagaffe ya Muslim. Tegedde ekyo maama w'abaana ono wakikola. Taata w'abaana mwangu nnyo ku baana be abaleka ne bagenda babeera abasiraamu. Ayinza n'okujja n'abaga nti muli basiraamu mugende musaale. Maama ono wataba munyovu n'obanga omulina waka nga si munyovu musiraamu, baana bagaana okusaala n'okukola ekintu kyonna nga mwembi muli basiraamu. Wallahu a'lam. N'obanga omulina waka nga tomukwasizza maanyi era abaana bakuddukako. Ennyumba ezatali basiraamu nnyingi, ez'abasiraamu abaana nga bagenda bangi. Walillahi alhamdu. Tusaba abantu kuba eddiini y'obusiraamu luli yali mu briefcase naye kati eri ku ttebo, buli omu asobola okwebikkulira mu nnimi zonna n'okuba ne GP we nga tutegeezaawo sheekhe we asobola omuyamba ku ddiini ye. Tusaba Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala atuluŋŋamye. Neebaza Bibi Rahma oba akyaliko. Balwanyise edda ennyo, I think 20 years ago. Era community emu muyita Aina amanya mangi muyita Bibi Rahma comment yemuyita TV lady.
TV lady.
TV lady yalwanyisa TV lady netufunamu nnyo. Yalinga asomesanga abaana era yatulaga problem eri mu cartoon. Twali tumanyi cartoon is very nice. Omuleka n'ogenda okola emirimu yagamba musome cartoon byekola. What is the cartoon meaning? Ekola biki? Baana mubajje ku cartoon. Mujje TV awakanga abaana bakyali bato bamala okukula. Abaana omulala okuza ku trend bajja genda. Nga buli lwayogera so group emu ne mwita TV lady. Era gabitira amaga TV lady. Because lot of people, I have my daughter Hamima yafumbirwa. Taina TV waka ina abaana bataano.
Masha Allah.
Taina TV waka abaana muya gamba nti I'm going to do as the TV lady he says.
Masha Allah. Masha
Baana bataano. Ne taina TV waka.
Masha Allah.
I can't afford it. Naye because of that lady Bibi Rahma akachanga na kakakamata kwa lugha zozote. Mola mbariki.
Amin ya Rabbi.
Amin.
Amin.
Na wale kila shekhe ni zaidi hajui lugha walao hajui Kiswahili walao kalima.
Masha Allah.
Kasema Swahili kamtuma tena.
Sheikh Zaid amesikia jina lake akaja.
Hawezi. Wewe mgana ule. Bibi Rahma akadhani zaidi anajua Swahili akamwambia kwa Swahili nasikia anasema maskini.
Maskini kumbe. Mashallah, mashallah.
Tunashukuru tena.
Barakallahu
kubariki.
Amin ya Rabbi. Amin. Amin.
Rahma, barakallahu fi Sheikh Kalantan. But this man Sheikh Kalantan is also your Kuba.
Are we done? Are the questions done?
No, we have a few hands up, but then so that we get those hands and then
how many? How many do we have?
I think the questions will be 3. I still have Sheikh Mukwaya, but I think Sheikh Mukwaya.
Let's take the last 3 or 4 and then we're done.
Okay, there are 4 only. So
then you can give me permission to go.
Okay, yes. Let me
let's take
Sharia USA. If you can keep your questions to a minute. Then Sheikh Mukwaya Sebo umwami wange kujja kusembyayo kabadde kakodi. Sister Jalia, USA.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Rahma. The information is really well explained. I'm not having any question in it. One of the parents is not a Muslim or the different issues by contradiction of parents. So I have the issue. I have a nina proof on my own side. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ebintu byekola byokka okusinzira Sister Rahma wada somesa nti ekintu kyonna bwe kibeera ku mutindo gwa Busiraamu ebintu ebimu byekola byokka. For example, I have a witness of some of our kids n'agenda gy'agenze nga wantu Obusiraamu tebuliwo agamba nze ndi Musiraamu sigenda kukola kino because the foundation yabeera nga yo already okoze eki ogibuildinze. The other parents are not Muslim oba waliwo issues zonna eziremesa maama kyakola oba kiremesa taata kyakola olw'okuba omwana abeeramu Obusiraamu ne Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala n'akwatira ku mbeera eyo ebintu bya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tebiteera kulemwa era kibeera nga kigaanyi oluusi omuntu oba olina obukkiriza eri Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kibeera kigezo eri your belief oba eri omwana oba eri both parents. Ego bw'obeera ng'oli ku musingi gwa Busiraamu embeera eyo tesobola kukosa because inside yourself you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yaleese embeera nga bw'eri. Kubanga I have a child n'agende oba tata we decided to not even pray or do Islam or you want to stand on her own that, okay, if dad is going for church or church, I'm not going for church because I'm a Muslim. I'm not doing that. Hijab. He will say, no, I'm not, because this is how I grew up, you know, doing what I'm supposed to do. Kwegamba omuntu na either tata or mama, you just have to stick to the right. Eranga baseka bagambya abamu nti issue esinga okulemesa ebintu bino foundation obusiramu obuba tebuliiwo, ebintu byonna bibeera nga seka omwe yagambye nti wegamba bibeera kasavu kanyama. I don't even know how to put it. Naye obusiramu bwobanga weebuli nga sister wazasomesa ebintu byonna byekola byokka na dua na kwongera kusaba Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala embeera okubeera nga gibeera nga bweri naawe okubeera ku kintu kyoliko n'omanya nti kyekyamazima ge mazima g'oliko ge mazima kwabeera ki.
Barakallahu fik, Sister Jalia. For your contribution. Abu, I now want to say, wait,
Sister Husna no abaddeko for long.
Husna, okay. So say my apologies. Sister Husna is one of our teachers at Somesa. Sister Husna, thank you for tuning in to Kusanyu Kide. Can you unmute yourself? Why one is say ate normala no jayo mkono.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Sister Hasfa. It's a network issue.
Sister Husna, we can't hear you.
Bismillah wa salatu wasalam ala rasulillah wa ba'd. I want to say that I was able to follow the class. Some questions that people hello.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you're breaking. Hello? Sister Husna, alabika buseeko. Katuwa omuntu omulala nabadde awanise omukono. Let me see. Erinnya lye linnemye okusoma Oluwarabu.
Salaamu alaikum.
Alaikum salaam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ndi mutabani wa Teeka Kalantani.
Asfa namba Oluwarabu aluyiga.
Bannange obutu nnyukuta butini ku simu yange kwekozesa.
Naye wamma Asfa obutalisoma seeka abuzaabuza. Kirina kuba abu yagamba bu. Akati na kyova na wali kiri kiri faiz. Naye nga seeka mukwato musango lwaki akubuzaabuza.
Sheikh Zaidi fe abahadrami okuva e Yemen batuyita Basandawa, Ba Aziz, Bu Faiz. Kale sewonde.
Hello, Sister Husna, just a minute. Just a minute, honey.
Okay. All right.
Sabo genda maaso, 1 minute.
Okay, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Webali nnyo bannanga abanjuzi n'abateesiteesi b'omusomo gw'olwairo ate n'olw'obukulu bwabwo ndoza tukwetaaga nnyo. Naye njagala commentinga ku just nga citing a few examples endabye mu community ku kikwatagana ku nsonga singa abazadde ababiri baawukanye. That is on one side, naye ate eriyo issue endala nti nga bwe tuli nti ng'abatonde tetusobola kwebala mabikebo bya nsi eno. Eriyo omuntu yesiŋŋaana mu bannyinaffe ng'azadde abaana omusajja nga si musiraamu. Akati tetwogera ku kya divorce naye ng'abazadde si lwakuba nti no bafumbo naye yesiŋŋaanye ng'alina abaana n'oluvannyuma Mungu n'amuluŋŋamya n'alaba nti waliwo ensobi n'ayagala agezeeyo okubeera ng'akuza abaana be mu ngeri y'obusiraamu. Tekibajjaako kubeera nti oli kitaabwe wabula ng'ate mu ngeri y'enzikiriza ng'ali wala nnyo. Akati eyo issue naye tukola kitugirina nti kati omuntu ng'oyo sigamba nti tiyasoma kutegeera bukulu bwafu kubanga teyingira mu bufumbo naye circumstances zaali zimwetoolodde tuyinza okuba nga tuzimanyi ne zimuviirako okuba nga yeesiŋŋaana ali mu mbeera bw'etyo. Nejjeebaayo abantu abalaba nga circumstances zaabakwatako ne beesiŋŋaana nga bayingidde mu bufumbo si lwakuba nti babwagala naye olw'ama alibu dunya wiya amalala nga balaba baali ku muguwa nga bwe tukimanyi bwe kitera okuba ku bantu ab'embeera endala. Nze wabula pointi yange gye mbadde njagala oba Jawali yanaatuyamba aginnyonnyole nti waliwo kye tulaba mu society wano, maybe not so much e Kampala ewaffe, naye wano nti kale ng'omuzadde omukyala ayinza okugamba nti kagezeeko nnyo okukugira abaana okubanga mu ngeri y'okubatangira okubanga tebayingira mu influence mbi. Naye nejja weesanga nti emyaka gino egisooka gitera okubeera emyangu, myaka okuva mu kuzaalibwa 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ng'abaana bakyali soloyo, naye girinamu dimension endala nti gy'emyaka egyetaaga emotional attachment oba emotional needs z'abaana eri bakadde baabwe bombi nazo ziwenga so heavily ate nga ziri crucial irrespective enzikiriza y'omusajja kitaabwe oba eya maama waabwe, naye nga kiyinza okuba n'omudda naddala ku ludda lw'omusajja kiyinza okuba affectinga ekinene ennyo. Nze nina keesi ziringa z'abantu nga bataano, abaana nga bataano be nnaakalaba nti tuyinza kumanya history wa gye yatandikira, naye oluvannyuma lwa almost 10 years kati balaba kitaabwe kati bakuze batuuse mu myaka egiri so tempting, adolescent age, myaka 15, 16, 18, omwaka yali ali mu A-level, naye nga maama we agamba nti Sheikh nyamba omwana takyampulira, omwana ki kakati anzirukako n'agenda ewa kitaawe, kozi kitaawe yali abeera side ze Hastings. Akati kyembadde njagala nti ekintu ekyo tukihandolinga kitya kubanga at one stage omwana ayinza okwesiŋŋaana n'adiscoveringa emotional vacuum, naye nga sigga nti eguddewo bugwi, naye atandika okukuba ebifaananyi kabe kasinga nga muzeeyi we tamulabye, naye waatandikiddwa okubeera somehow kitaawe amugudde. Tuli mu mulembe gwa .com nti abantu beezuula ku gundi ku internet, ku Facebook oba ku gundi whatever, oba ku Twitter oba ku ki, n'abondinga kakati najja azuula nti either baamukweka oba ekifaananyi tekyavaayo bulungi. Ekifaananyi kirala kye nnina kya mwami omwalina emyaka giringa 65, yali aleeta abaana be na ku supplementary school yaffe gye tusomesa, yajja n'aŋŋamba nti Sheikh, I need advice. Ne mugamba nti eriwa, n'aŋŋamba nti manyi maama wange yayawukana ne taata wange, I was 5 years old. Maama wange n'antwala saddamu kulaba taata wange, akati maama wange n'afumbirwa, eno gye yafumbirwa taata wange yandabirira bulungi nnyo 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 nnyo, era I take me like my dad kubanga ekifaananyi kye bampa kyonna my dad ogamba teyatreatinga bulungi maama wange, nange nandekerera, naye kati my dad yayise mu ba uncles bange kati ayagala tusinkane enkole ntya. Naye ng'agamba nti bwe nkikola it will upset my mom so much ne olwa bondi gye tulina nze naye I think kijja muyisa bubi, but at the same time nange I don't know what to do. Kakati nendaba nti those atandise kati okudiscoveringa emotional attachment gy'atalinaako control. Simanyi ekintu ekyo tugenda kikola tutya. Naam, obujulizi okuva ku Nabbi sallallahu alaihi wasallam kale butugamba nti nno nga bwe tukiraba mu hadithi nnyingi ya Abdallah bin Umar eza Abu Huraira zonna mukyala yajja n'agamba nti baka wa
omusomesa awininga up
seconds 10 zokka. Mmange olubuto lwange lwe nakulira, ennyumba yange omwana mwakulidde, ebbeere lyange kwe yayoka, kati kitange ayagala mutwala. Kati namugamba kale oli omwami ayinza okuba nga ali musiraamu, naye the emotional element gye simanyi in the long run, nga Sheikh Mutabuya bwe yagambye nti nno mu fiqhul ma'alat tulina okugezaako okutunulya ebintu biyinza kuggweerawa, si mu wiiki, si mu mwaka gumu, si mu etaano, ekiyinza okuba myaka nga 2 oba 10. Akati ekintu ekyo kimanyi kyensembyayo nti oluusi kituuka ku level embi ennyo nti maama abaana akuzizzaawo bakatugamba abaana bakuze bakudde wa nnyaabwe ne batuuka n'okufumbirwa katugambe, naye olw'ebyo ebyaliwo ne weesiŋŋaana nti ne taata taweereddwa chance, ayinza okuba nga taweereddwa chance kubeera ng'ali involved mu kufumbisa ki muwala we. Ebintu embadde njagala tubihandolinga tutya.
Sheikh, twabadde tuwogedde in the beginning nti abaana bwe baba nga parental conflict will affect the children's ability to engage in relationships in the future. We touched a bit on that. Like in the question you are bringing is a whole talk, topic. You are talking about this thing that we have in psychology that we call attachment and loss, the ideas of attachment and loss. And then when the children are growing up, there is something else that children go through, which we call an identity crisis. So when children don't know who they are, they experience that identity crisis. So we keep one parent as a secret. We don't let them involved with that parent, but then they start to find out. I actually have a few cases that I'm working on. But I think it's very difficult for us to think about that now, because today's topic was parental conflict and divorce and how we need to support the children through that. So if we want to think about developing children's identity, attachment and loss ideas, so the formative years are very, very important for the attachment. Some big theorists, psychiatrists tell us that the first 2 years are crucial to develop a very good, healthy attachment. But even in the attachment, we have different ways of attaching. There's disorganized attachment. So even if parents are there, the attachment is not good. So when we go into parental mental health, that affects the attachment. Most of the children who get removed by social services, it's to do with maternal mental health when the parent is a single parent. So I think we're going in a different direction, and I don't know if we have the time, but it is something we might want to think about. But the idea is that children have to be allowed as much as possible to meet the other parent, the family, to be part of it for many reasons. Now, if the birth of the child was out of marriage, like you said, and then they've kept it a secret from the child, that's very troubling for the child. So it's very important to break the conversation, to allow the children to know who they are through their parent. And I think I'm going to leave it to that, but it's a very lengthy conversation and it needs a very lengthy approach, which really wasn't what we were thinking about today. But yes, it's a very important question.
Maybe inshallah it will be something to explore in the future.
Main thing is not to forget that children go through what we call identity crisis.
Yes.
Sister Rahma, wali mu nsonga ezo ekintu ekyo abaana abamu okimanyi nti ate bakyuka ne bakyawa bamaama baabwe.
Kabisa. Kabisa tena babakyawa ne babahatinga. That's why we have to be very careful not to deny the children to make a relationship with the other parent. It's very important. It's healthy for the children that they make that relationship. And they do hate and they resent. So we see a lot of adults in our clinics whereby they're very angry with their parents because when mom left dad, mom stops us from seeing dad. She told us a lot of negative things about dad. There is even moms who tell their children, your dad is not bringing any support, but the father is putting money in the bank every week. So moms, normally we end up staying with the children. Make sure you're connecting with Allah in your job of raising those children, because something goes wrong somewhere and then it turns around to bite you. So then you end up losing, but in the process, your child is harmed.
No, barakallah feeka. Sister Husna.
Thank you so much, Hasfa. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. I was thanking Rahma for the session. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the fact that this is coming mostly from the psychological perspective and the Islamic perspective for you. You have kept referring. And I want to confirm that from what I know Islamically, that this resonates totally. And what I wanted to emphasize or take you aback, because I felt like we are talking about it in a logical way, that this is what is logic, but Islamically, first of all, I want parents to understand that we should separate at a point where we appreciate that this is what is best for both of us Islamically. When we appreciate that we have tried, because divorce has stages, to the point when you say, let us be apart, We have tried sleeping in one bed and we have failed. We have tried sleeping in separate rooms and we have failed. We have talked to friends to come and sit in our issues and we have failed. We have tried all this and that and we have failed, so we cannot indeed stay together. And actually, even divorce gives you a lot of time. Try, but if you come back and engage together intimately, then you go to the very beginning of the cycle. So that is why they say, okay, although they said the hadith is da'if, but it has been narrated that the most hated among the lawful things is divorce. Why? Because of the things it brings. So once we go down the road of divorce, we should appreciate that we cannot stay together. If we stay together, tugenda kujemera Allah.
But sister, at the beginning of this program today, we had a sheikh who covered the rules of divorce and why people should. It was so beautiful. So he set the tone for us to think about, what do we do now that we are divorced? How do we move forward with the children? He did such a beautiful job.
Okay, thank you. I didn't attend that part. I'm so sorry to take it back.
The organizers thought it really well. So we opened off with Islamically, what does Islam teach us about divorce and marriage? And then we talked about, now that the divorce has happened, what should we do about the children?
Okay, let me just then take it from there. Now, if we have appreciated that we have to be apart, so we should not be worried about the arrangement of co-parenting, because you should not be worried that these people are going to get back together, because Islamically, at the point where they agreed to separate, they felt they couldn't stay together and she agreed to move on, and we should stay respectful. If you choose to get married to another partner, that communication should be a respectful communication. You don't pick these casual calls, for example.
We've discussed all that in detail, actually. Because one of the examples we had was, now the woman has moved on, she's married to another man. And then the father of the children is thinking, why should they tell me what to do? Then we said, the new husband now is the man and the imam of the house. So therefore, the two dads need to cooperate in how the communication is going to happen, what role this father will play in his children's lives, knowing that in this home now, there is a new leader, there's a leader there. I can't just trample on this woman and just on the flick of a finger that she should pick up my phone. We've really covered all that. We're thinking about how things work for the children emotionally, psychologically, but we're thinking about everything from an Islamic orientation.
Okay, but also what I wanted to highlight, there is the secular law. Whereas we want to look at Islamically, there is the secular law. So when we fail to agree, we are living in the world that is being regulated by the secular law.
Definitely.
So I think we also need to appreciate that, because I have seen examples. I've seen a parent being separated from a child. They have been Muslim parents, but the father has reverted. And when he reverted, the courts awarded custody to the father. Like the child had to be taken. And now what happens? So the aspect of dua, I think someone mentioned it, that if the child has gone and you can't do anything about it, and you're worried they are not practicing Islam, and you can't do anything, pray about this. Okay, this is something I wanted to highlight. And also the issue of Muslim parent, the other parent is not a Muslim. What I wanted to emphasize is, we cannot use Islam in regulating something that principally is not Islamic. So that is also a concern, and we should be careful. Whereas we are, selfish that we have to protect these people, they have become Muslims, the secular law will always come in. And like you mentioned, Sister Rahma, yes, those remain their parents, whether they are Muslims or not. Okay, I wanted to just highlight that aspect, and thank you. I can submit. Thank you.
Mashallah, jazakallah khair.
Mashallah, jazakallah khair. I want to read, there's a comment that was put by Dr. Noor. She said, divorce is like any other loss of someone or something important. One should go through the stages of loss, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and lastly, acceptance. One needs to seek help, professional, including religious leaders, good, practical, and truthful friends. That is something that was written in the chat room before.
Hajat Hasfa.
Wanji?
About the prayer, ngomwana bamututte nga you have nothing to do. Kyatuuka ne ku bannabbi. Nabbi Yusuf yabula muto baganda bye baamusuula n'akuira mu nsinga erimu shirik naye taata we yamukyalira ye nabbi weeyo nga kasita kigaana completely edduwa y'omuzadde esigala ng'erina impact sigala ng'osabira omwana wo. Nabbi taata wa nabbi Yusuf Israel ye kennyini Yakob teyasobola kulera Yusuf kumufuula nabbi naye ate be yalera tebaafuuka bannabbi naye ate oli yagenda eri yafuuka ki nabbi. So it is important okumanya nti ye Allah asobola okukubeererawo wonna ng'oli naye nga toli naye bwe kiba kiganye. La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha.
Okay, barakallah fi Sheikh. Kasembia Sheikh Mukwaya, and then we'll let Sister Rahma go. Sheikh Mukwaya.
Sister, Sheikh Mukwaya sokolideko, sorry, manyu go gendo ku closing the curtain. Eno gundi ayembadde saagala gireka. Sister Bibi Rahma.
Yes.
Mu situation where omwana yayagala contact naye abazadde one of the parents does not want to know. How do you support that child?
So the person that the child wants contact with is not interested.
Yes.
Okay. So the resident parent really needs to help this child to understand that she's okay or he's okay with him having contact, but the other person doesn't want to. So it's helping them to accept that and to understand that it's not about the child. This is about the adult. If they're refusing contact, it's not because this child has done anything wrong or it is the child's fault. Always when we do something, it's not about the other person, it's about us. So we need the child to understand this is not about them, it's about the dad or the mom. They have decided to move on, they want nothing to do with you. You have to accept that, but they're still your dad. And if you want to send them a card, if you want to send them a note, you can. But don't be disheartened just because they won't engage with you. There are so many cases of that nature where parent goes and they want nothing. But it's important for us to help the children to understand they are not at fault. That's all you can do, that they are not at fault.
Sister Rahma, mbadde nsaba nange onnyambe kati n'ekizibu kino nga bw'oyogedde omukyala yaleka omwami akonekitinge n'abaana nga bw'otugambye obutamalaawo Oluganda. The problem omwami gye yakola yagula essimu n'agiwa abaana n'abagamba munkubirengako naye mama wammwe nga temumugambye. Ate byonna byonna ebiri ewaka mbadde kati waliko omwana omu nti nkwatira gundi video ompeereze kati omu n'agambako maama we kati maama we n'amugamba nti baakwadde essimu naye essimu gimpe kubanga yategeera nti egenda kuleeta obuzibu. Essimu omuzadde bwe yagijja ku mwana omwana n'agenda ne ku ssomero n'awaaba nti maama yanzigyeko essimu. Kati omwana olutalo ne luvaawo ku ssimu. Kati omuzadde omusajja omukyala nga agezezaako okuleka abeere nga contacting omwana. Kati simanyi magezi g'omuwa kubanga omwana yafuuka ekizibu n'abeera nga ne ku ssomero takyayagala kusoma kubanga bamuggyako essimu naye ng'ate maama ye yali agezaako okuleka taata akole ki akolagane n'abaana be.
Kakati awo nayogedde we nabadde njogera earlier nti tetubawa abaana, don't put the children in the situation of keeping secrets. Kakati taata bwe yabawa abaana essimu mama ne tata balina okkiriziganya how to boundary the phone. Even mother can keep the phone. They have to get into an agreement. So baba bwe yagula essimu okugibawa yandigiwadde mama n'amagamba mama simu ngiwadde abaana yange ya communicatinga nabo nga tukola direct communication. Kati awo mama ne tata bandikkiriziganyiza boundaries. Nti nja kubanga simu saawa bweziti abaana nja balekera essimu. Oba it has to be boundary. The resident mother has to know how to work with the dad and how to set boundaries for the children. Kati ekyaliwo wano tata atomanyi non-resident parents buy their children. They buy their children. They give them things.
Yes.
So then the resident parent now felt that she needed to remove the phone. By removing the phone, this child is rebelling because my father gave me the phone. Remember, the non-resident parent is always more lovable because when they see him, they have fun, they get gifts. And the person who lives with the children has to do all the dirty work, all the discipline, all the homework, all the nagging. So when the non-resident parent wants to give things to the children, it needs to be very grown up, very mutual in the way they do it. So now that she removed the phone, she needed to talk. Let's talk to our children. Talk and talk and talk. If you're not calm, walk away, come back when you're calm and let's talk. Talk to your child why you want to remove the phone. What is the problem with them having the phone? Give them the rules. If they break the rules, then you take the phone.
The non-custodian parents, I think sometimes but they overcompensate.
Of course.
Not being home.
Exactly.
When they're overcompensating, they want to buy the nicest things. Always the custodian parent has, because is not the nice one.
No, because you're doing all the dirty work, all the homework, all the coming home on time, go to bed, wake up. Definitely. Yeah. So it's not easy. Did we have the last question?
Sheikh Mukwaya, and we're winding up, and we'll wind up. Sheikh Mukwaya, Sebo.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bibi Rahma, asante sana, tumekushukuru.
Mimi nashukuru kupawa fursa.
Lakini samini sana, labda tumechukua muda wako mrefu sana.
Alhamdulillah.
Lakini wewe ni mtu wetu.
Naam, alhamdulillah.
Nafikiri hata nyumbani unakula matoke na sisi tunakula matoke.
Mara moja si sana. Kazi ndefu kupika matoke.
Sasa sisi tutakupikia inshallah.
Biidhnillah.
Biidhnillah. Labda wa lockdown ikiishe tutakuwa matoke hapo sisi imekuwa mingi siku hizi.
Mashaallah.
Kakati tweyanziza nnyo byonna by'otugambye. Tusaba Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kuwemu n'akadde.
Amin ya Rabbi.
Njagadde okwebaza n'okukola a few remarks. Nsaba abatuwuliriza bannange mikwano gyange mwenna nga Bibi Rahma akyogedde, Seke yasose yakyogedde, Shasiraf yakyogedde, ensonga z'obufumbo waliwo ezimu zetujajinga case by case. Allah yatugamba nti fattaqullaha mastata'tum. Mwanyinaffe bw'aba yalino naddala yagamba nti njagala omuntu nazaala abaana gye mbazadde. Weetaaga okwogera n'omuntu nga mu butuufu ategeera obusiraamu, asobola okutegeera situation yo, naawe n'otegeera situation yo n'omanya kiki oyagala, kubanga omwana gw'ozadde mu bwenzi omuzadde oyagala abeere nti ate asoma eddiini, kintu ky'oteekeddwa okukwata empola okusinziira kwegamba ku busobozi bw'osobola. Eyo embeera kwegamba tusobola kukijajingira on the air buli omu, kubanga ndabye ensonga z'obufumbo bw'otandika okuzomesa kati nga batusobera ku Zoom nga bala badda mu chat room, waliwo abagambye ne Seka waffe nti ali theoretical. Munange oba tobadde polite, Seka oba tumuwadde ekitiibwa, amateeka g'obusiraamu oba togadde ekitiibwa. Tuyiga okwogera enjogera ennungi nga tekosa kuba kufaananyi nti singa akiwulidde ekyo gw'okigambye tekiba kirungi. Naye olwaliro alhamdulillah Allah atuwadde nti bwe kiba kyetaaga kale counseling oba nga kati abantu abakola mu open world nga bola Bibi Rahma webali ate mashallah Bibi Rahma eddiini agitegera bulungi agimanyi bulungi yensonga ezo nenjagala okukola comments nti bw'obanga olina ensonga ng'olaba nti yeetaaga okusolvinga first of all gamba njagala gisolvinga ng'omusiraamu oba gisolvinga nze nsigale in my own way bw'oba oyagala ng'omusiraamu then funa omuntu akunywera ng'obusiraamu naye gonza omutima gwo guno egamba osabe na Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Allah ensonga eno ginyangwize ginzigirewo Allah bw'abanga abaana abo yabagerera nti bajja kulungama naye bwe tukiteeka mu debate amanyi n'atamanyi n'akolako comment ne remarks oluusi n'eziyinza okuba nti tezitambudde bulungi nze nsaba tubeere kwegamba bw'otandika okusomesa obufumbo okwogera obufumbo ebeera nani ending story oba nani ending debate wabaawo abajja ne baleeta arguments ng'agamba practically nze kino kye nalaba ate omuntu abuuliza mu general public ate ayagala ba addressing gundi ye nga practically nga kyalaba maybe eyo eba yeetaaga nga bw'ogenda omusawo nga oliwo jipirwa gamba nti okay let's wait if there's a private room I'll take you there and then I can see you from there nembusiramu weekiri naye mbale nenga ndowooza kankomaawo nebaza nnyo mwenna abateesiteesi mbadde nsaba programu eno bwe tuba tugize maybe olulala Bibi Rahma naawe tuweeyo akadde akalala inshallah probably I would suggest the duo bakomewo nga batwongere kwegamba maybe ne questions tuzibuuze naye nga barakallahu fikum wa jazakumullahu khairan.
Amen. Barakallahu fikum, Sheikh Mukwaya. Sister Rahma, I'm having a lot of requests. People betaga your contact.
Give me permission to go now. So my business number,
yes,
is 70921.
Is it possible to write it in the chat room? Can you do it?
Yeah, I can.
Please.
Okay.
Haja tu Kenya weteke Kenyabo, Sister Rahma.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Sister Rahma, barakallahu fikum. Tusiime nnyo maama obudde bwo.
Nze nsiimye nnyo okusinga munipa platform.
Nnyo.
Hajatu Kenya, bo we muting nze mama.
Them muting there's a co-host who is tapping mute participants to unmute all. Just be careful not to do that because it interrupts Bambi.
Okay. Ngende maaso.
Yeah.
Sister Rahma, tujja kukomyawo tusaba Allah akusobozese ekintu kino tusooseko ku session 1 inshallah tujja kukola session 2 nga bwekyogeddeko nga Sekakibuka bwe yagambye waliwo abantu ababula n'atuuka myaka 4 nga lwabuuza taata we olina engeri gy'okinyonnyoddemu awo n'ogonako katono n'otuwa wakyaliyo points 2 omwana eyazaawa eyabula eyezudde mu bukulu byonna ebyo biinako bwino inshallah tujja kusaba Allah atusobozese era tukuwe obudde obumala ekyo nakiyiga bulungi nnyo
naye nange kati ngamba jazakumullahu khairan kumpa platform ku muntu ngoja nifikire kwa Kiganda kwa awereddwa n'afunye nze mpeereddwa nze sigabye nze mpeereddwa nimesema sawa sawa?
Yes.
Naam, very good.
Nze mpeereddwa nze sigabye nze ngabiddwa.
Oh man.
So jazakumullahu khairan and all the participants mwebale nnyo jazakumullahu khairan. You've been very patient, you've been very interactive. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. May He subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the permission to apply what we learn, to fight ourselves and do what we need to do that will give us success in this life and the next life. Jazakumullah khairan. I've put my number in the chat.
Bibi Rahma.
Naam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Nga shekalanta ne bwa sharinze akantu ka TV ready.
Naam.
Nange njagala nsharinge muko akantu akamu kiwagamba ku mwami mukwaya.
Naam.
Twafuna essomero eheize eryo erisomesa Qur'ani nga namukwaya agenda Saturday ne Sunday.
Okay.
Wamukubira n'akubuuza nti brother Musa, how is the kids? Nakugaa nti amwali eyo asoma eyo. N'omugamba ekintu kimu. Gw'omutwala, mukyala we yamutwala oba yeetwala yekka? Nakugaa nti yeetwala yekka. N'omugaa nti tokikkiririzaako ddala. Wallaahi awo twakoma singa nakwaya Qur'ani yagimalako. Naye awo Musa yakoma naŋŋamba nti Jawhara Bibi Rahma ngambye ekigambo. Wallahi omwana we yakoma awo era we yakoma ogenda ehezi we twakomera awo naye nga alhamdulillah nsaba Mungu abasiime.
Amin ya Rabbi.
Ebibuuzo byange ebisinga byabadde ku musomo gwa guno alhamdulillah byonna bibadde biri gundi naye ogwattalaako ogwo era nga bibagambye abateesa bonna kuba waliwo yawandiise mu chatroom eyo n'agamba nti abakyala twetala kadda.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. Bas, jazakumullahu khairan.
Yabadde mwami ekitutaddeko kirabika abakyala twetala kadda naye nga tumanyi.
Subhanallah.
Naye ng'omusomo gubadde mulungi nsaba adda akusiime.
Amin ya Rabbi.
Era akwongere okumanya n'okutegeera.
Amin ya Rabbi. Fenna.
Ate nawe b'osomesezza teeke mu nkola.
Amin.
Tumusaba atuwe okumanya n'okutegeera obusiraamu.
Inshallah, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.